Justin, what is up? What is up? Thank you for being here. What time for Pokemon Unite? I don't know. I don't know. But we'll definitely geek out. We'll definitely have a lot of things to talk about. We're definitely, a lot of things on the docket. All right, let's get started because I have I have a few long videos. So, hell, let's just talk about it. Let's check them out. Let's check them out already. All right, let's get started. Let's get started. Hopefully this is going to be a good video.
This could be swords, guns, bows, some kind of weapon. And the male shopkeeper comes over and says, "Ah, a lady, it just so happens that we have these lighter swords, these smaller guns, these differently made bows. These are all intended and made specifically for women who tend to have smaller hands, weaker grip strength, and so on. Would you like to try one?" Then the woman laughs and girl boss and says something along the lines of, "Us lady folk can handle blah 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 big man size the same as any of you boys. Stop being so misogynistic." This is so incredibly idiotic. This is the exact same as some woman walking into a shoe store and the guy comes out and says, "Ah, you have smaller feet, so let me show you these shoes over here that are made in your size." But the woman stops him cold. "No," she says, "I am a strong female character. I will wear size 12 man shoes like strong man folk because I am no different from man." It's just incredibly dumb and it needs to stop. But these days, you can't make it through a single shelf in a bookstore without coming across something that proudly contains within its pages a strong female character. Such a trend is not limited to women's lit or YA, but has seeped into the content of literary fiction, genre fiction, mystery fiction, romance, middle grade fiction, and so on and so on. And this is true across all mediums: books, movies, television, and even video games. Stories ostensibly for men and stories for women. This isn't a sudden surge of female characters, but of specifically strong female characters. Fundamentally different, we're told.
Controversially, kind of why I'm annoyed by the strong female characters. I have an AI girlfriend. Yes, she would. She should. Yes, women should worry. If the AI does something wrong, I can make her what I want. Yo, TVD, what's up, my brother? That could be the future, right? So we're gonna talk about AI girls, you know, robots and stuff like that. Right? We have a video talking about it, but I want to set the stage, right? So this video is going to show you why, honestly, men are tired of a lot of women today, right? Tired of your girl boss, right? The girl boss, the bad bee, your strong, independent woman. You don't need no man type of women. We will definitely talk about that. So.
Character, then you might as well feed it to the confetti machine because no one else will touch it. You could look at this as an aspect of the female domination of literature that people sometimes talk about, and that is definitely a factor. Even when the authors are male, if at least one major character isn't a strong female, he will be shown the door. Or go the other way, even if the writer is female, if one of her characters isn't a strong woman of a specific type, she will invariably be bullied and pressured into changing it, provided publishers even bother pursuing her book. I get that this might sound a bit disingenuous coming from a woman. As a female, shouldn't I be all about the proliferation of strong female characters? Shouldn't the increase in female representation make me happy? As a woman, where do I even start? First of all, I don't know what this is exactly.
I would sell my kidneys and live a life on dialysis if it meant I could put her into an android.
Bizarre explosion of this one highly specific type of so-called female character, but it isn't female representation and it isn't female empowerment. It's actually the opposite, which I'll get into in a minute. More than that, these women are barely women. They are nominally women. In almost every case that I looked at, almost every story I read or watched, almost every character highlighted by critics as an excellent, strong female character, this female character typically had much more in common with men. It wasn't just that her strength was portrayed in a masculine way, like that turbo cringe shot in Twilight when Bella started arm wrestling all the dudes. It was also that everything else about these women was very masculine, so much so that the fact that they were women was only evident by reading the pronouns if it was in a book, or looking for boobs if it was a game or a movie. Otherwise, there was no...
And that's the thing. That's the thing that men are dealing with. Men aren't dealing with women, right? Men are dealing with women that are men, right? And it's not even a trans thing. It's women that have the mindset, the temperament, the personality of a man, trying to one up you, trying to compete with you. And that's the thing what men are dealing with: the aggression, the combativeness, the disagreeableness. That's what men are dealing with. The UK is trying to get AI thrown in the trash because of AI psychosis, really.
Real way to determine that these women were women. For the record, in case this somehow isn't clear, I am not saying that female characters are bad, but rather this specific industry-branded strong female character. And a huge part of that is that genuinely female strong characters are wonderful, but you hardly ever see them anymore. I miss female characters. I miss the Ripleys and the Sarah Connors. I want more Jo Marches and even Meg Marches. I also don't understand why these women aren't considered strong female characters. Maybe they are, but if that's the case, then why do people claim that there have only recently been strong women in stories? Were the Ripleys and the Sarah Connors and the Lucy Pevensies and the Eowyn's not strong enough? Was there something wrong with them? Were they not manly enough? There is something perverse in the fact that a strong female character must present strength in the way a man does. Women cannot, it seems, just be strong. No, they have to be man strong. Otherwise, apparently, they're not strong and they're not worthwhile women. In a sense, this comes across like women as women are being pushed aside and that women as men are what is to be preferred or celebrated. That is, a woman is not worth anything unless she strips off her femininity and dons the masculinity of men. One example to get things rolling here would be Gillian Anderson's character in The Fall, Stella Gibson, whose behavior was deliberately and explicitly meant to be a female doing man things, including memorably picking up a random younger man in a bar to take back to her hotel room as a kind of weird show of sexual dominance. When she was later scolded for doing this, considering particularly that the man was married, she didn't acknowledge that there was anything wrong with her actions, but that it was merely hypocritical for men to have a problem with a woman doing something that was apparently, to her anyway, normal for a man. The layers of...
And I find that her being hypocritical, right? The archetype, that character archetype. So then you are no better than a man. Is that what you're trying to say? You're no different, no better than the men you're talking about. This is a thing where, is that the women's desire to be men? Right? To be men, to be actually the men that they criticize. This is the fascination that I see of like a lot of modern day women. A lot of modern day women are trying to be the men that they criticize, right? Like high body count, like no feelings for sex. You can have sex with anybody, right? You're strong. It's like you're combative. You're aggressive. It's like insane.
Garbage there are astounding. Let's ignore the ludicrous implication that every man everywhere for all of time, according to the writer of The Fall, fully intends to sleep with literally every able-bodied woman who crosses his path. And let's instead focus on the...
I love that. There's a lot of good female characters, right? Old Layla, Padme, Star Wars had a lot, and they were good characters and set up well, unlike modern female characters. They want to feel the power of testosterone. Exactly, I agree.
Way this woman's complexity and character were built around aspects which she and the writer framed as at least socially masculine. This woman's strength was presented in her impulse to behave unapologetically in a way that was deemed common to men. This also highlighted her independent separateness from men and her social superiority to men, because, well, at least she wasn't a hypocrite about it. All of which, that makes it not just okay, but actually admirable, apparently. I don't know about other women, but speaking for myself alone, I find these horrendously de-womaned, anti-feminine female characters deeply insulting to the point that I feel womanness has not even been portrayed. To my mind, these are not female characters. I don't know what they are, but they aren't female characters. There are three major things I want to talk about today. Why are all these strong female characters so terrible? Why has it resulted in increasingly non-female women? And is there a better way to write a strong woman? Spoiler alert, the answer to number 3 is yes, but we need to get through the other points first so we can fully understand where we've gone so wrong. That way we can, never make the same mistakes again. Let's talk first about...
Whiskey, what is up, my brother? What is up? Technology will alienate the need for men to want real women. I think so. I honestly think so. Technology will definitely change things up. It definitely will change things up.
Strength. This is a big topic and encompasses an assortment of issues. So first, we're going to talk about how absurd and insulting it is to present female characters as being only strong if they possess strength that is comparable to a man's. I have myself expressed fatigue at the overabundance of girl boss characters, and I've heard others say it as well. But something worth pointing out, the girl boss character isn't annoying because she's a girl boss, but because she's not a girl. She's some weird faux male.
To be honest, yeah, I mean, TBD, you're young enough, right? I think in your I think in your lifetime you may see that, right? It's like soon I will be able to create my own birthing unit android with my own curated AI inside. It might not be far off, right? You're in your, your mid-20s. I I think probably another 20 years, maybe. The advancements is always quicker.
What have I done? Some ostensibly female character wearing man skin and man traits, pretending that that makes her a strong woman. It's off-putting. You don't have to be looking for it to see that the only strength allowed to be present in strong female characters is the same strength that is present in your average male characters. It doesn't matter that there certainly are women out there who can swing a sword or...
Zyrax, what is up, my sister? What is up? Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm always down if you're down Wednesday. We could always do more chats. I love going back and forth with you, right? Because you presented different viewpoints, and it's nice to I believe, right? Having on the channel a female perspective of a different side. So I'm always down if you always want to chat some more. I got a heart condition, so who knows? Who knows? Fate will decide if I see 40. My brother, I hope that it gets better. Medical technology also, improves. So hopefully, things will get better for you. I love you, my brother. And great that your voice is back. I love it.
Fix their own engine or accurately fire a Desert Eagle with one hand. The point is that nowadays representation in media would have us, and by us I mean both women and men, but especially women, believe that a woman who cannot do these things is inferior to other women who can, because she is inferior to men. That a woman who has no interest in swinging a sword or who finds the Desert Eagle too big for her hands is therefore not ever going to qualify as a strong female and is probably being oppressed or enslaved in some way or something, I don't know. To start with, I think it would be helpful to define and then unbox the idea of strong insofar as it pertains to characters and character building. In the earliest days of this trend, I assumed that a strong female character was one that was well written. My initial complaint regarding the demand for more strong female characters was that there were already hundreds of well-written women on the pages and on the screens of storytelling throughout history, throughout the world, probably thousands. In time, however, I was corrected in my apparently erroneous assumptions, whether or not they were well written.
I love that, right? I love that. And you got to think, right? I think you are doing a service, right? Because presenting your own views, a different side, it's always a good thing in this space. Is there, what movie is that? There's a movie about this. What movie is that? Zarek, I always think it's a good thing. So I'm always down for us to chat because I think it's a good thing for you to share your opinions, right? Have a different perspective on, opinions in men's, side, right? Plus, I always want to promote a good dialogue between each other because I'm always respectful, right? Whether the chat likes you or not, it doesn't matter. Okay. It don't matter if chat likes you or not. It's just that it's a good thing if we could present, different sides where, I don't want to promote that over this side we are intolerant or we don't want to listen to other people's point of views.
Was not the matter, I was told. The issue was that they needed to be strong. What does this mean, strong? A lot of writers these days interpret that literally, that a woman has to be physically mighty to be even remotely impressive. The reality, like it or not, is that most women, even very trained female athletes, will fall short in physical strength when compared to men. This goes for the strength of a punch, to grip strength, to a whole host of other physical areas. There's a reason women have their own sports leagues and fighting leagues. It wouldn't be fair for women to have to compete against men. But there's nothing wrong with that. Women are under no obligation to be as strong as men. There's no rule anywhere that says women have to be considered as strong as men, otherwise that's misogynistic. It's not. It's fine and normal. So just to be clear, partly because I'm also a woman, I have no issue with the fact that women are typically not going to be as strong men. That doesn't mean I think less of women, because as we'll soon see, physical strength is only one kind of strength, and measuring women against men is pointless. Women don't have to be as strong as men in order to be strong, even physically so. Strong women are...
This is a thing where I hate how modern day media and feminists view things, right? They believe strength is exactly the same as men. When I've said this to countless women, right? I've said this to countless women before that I think I've talked to like social workers, teachers, okay, certain parents, and I've said that they were so strong. Right? I've said they're so strong because to hear the stories that I've heard from them, right, dealing with like unruly children, dealing Zyrax, thank you for the love, thank you for the love, my sister. Right, dealing with unruly children, dealing with children that are suffering. Right, I've heard stories from women telling me that a child having like a bad parent or no food to eat at home, no like barely any like any old jacket coming to school. I've heard like horrific stories of children being abused, right? All these things, and yet women going day to day, right? Going to work, dealing with these issues. I'm saying you are so strong. Like I could not even deal with this, right? I would not be able to do this because I would break down every time, right? I would break down hearing these sad, crazy ass sad stories that these women have to handle. So I'm telling you that that is strength. That is women's strength to handle so much emotional burdens. But yet society would tell you that isn't strength. What is strength is to be as strong as a man, to be as, physically capable as a man, to be strong, to have same strength characteristics as a man, right? Be able to go through work, right? Go like climb the ladder of a business. That is absolutely idiotic. I believe one of women's amazing strength is their ability to handle so much of an emotional toll, right? I couldn't handle it. I could not handle it because I believe that I would go crazy. Jeremiah, what is up? What is up?
Impressive in their own right. They don't need to be man-strong to be legitimately admirable or even aspirational. At first glance, it seems fine, even commendable, to portray the fact that a woman, too, is capable of masculine types of physical strength. However, it suggests that for a
Whiskey, thank you for the love, and thank you for the love. Women talk about masculinity as just strength and domination. For me, my masculinity was expressing my constructing. I built things, i.e., sheds. See, that's the thing where also creation, right? The creation of things is definitely a man's strength. While I think again, women should focus on the creation of life. That is women's strength. Men can't do that, right? Men can't do that, but yet men can shape the world, right? Men can shape the world around them, while women can produce, can fill the world. We both have our own distinct strength. If you listen to society today, that is the problem. That is a problem where women have to be like men, right? Women have to be compared to men. That's the insanity. I don't construct things anymore, but I did repair a planter I built 10 years ago. Still, bro, you have a pass of it, right? And that's commendable.
Woman to truly be strong, she must be stronger than men. But how a woman's physical strength compares to a man's has nothing at all to do with the existence of the strength itself. A woman does not cease to possess physical strength if hers is found to be inferior to or different from a man's. If a strong female character is being written into the narrative in order to be aspirational to female audiences, depicting her as being strong only because she has masculine strong traits will have the opposite effect in most cases. Women who are not stronger than the average strong male might view themselves as not only weak, but as a disappointment to their fellow women, inferior not just to strong men, but to strong women. Which leads us to the second point. This will present to audiences the idea that feminine strength, or anything at all that makes a woman less masculine, is weakness. This will lead women and young girls to come to despise their inherent femininity as something to be ashamed of. We have once again reached a point in history where young girls are being conditioned to be ashamed of their bodies. Why? Because if they're too feminine, then that must mean they're not very strong. Horseshoe theory, extreme modern feminism is indistinguishable from actual misogyny. So you see, female characters will tend now to be written with less and less femininity because the modern zeitgeist has declared that femininity is weakness. It's madness, but there it is. Not to speak of the fact that women who go out of their way to try to be like men because they insist that it makes them better women are very off-putting to both men and other women. It should go without saying that I love physically strong female characters, like, for example, Sarah Connor or even Eowyn. I love the shield maidens and the powerful ladies in ancient tales like Brunhild. But in times past, these types of characters weren't required to present present masculinity as strength, but rather strength as strength. In all other areas, they were permitted to be women, very feminine women. In fact, it was their femininity that gave them strength. Sarah Connor was a mother who turned into a mega badass so she could protect her son. Eowyn was a princess who, in the end, wanted only the power to protect her uncle, her family, and who still behaved with feminine grace and proudly declared, at the crucial moment, that she was most emphatically not a man, letting her long hair flow freely before delivering the killing blow. There's a reason Eowyn is admired by girls, because Eowyn's strength existed because of her femininity.
I totally agree, Antic. I totally agree. The modern women has penis envy. You told the story about the gym chick being jealous of the guy doing 45-pound lat rises. Yes. We do have a lot of women being envious of men. A lot of women want to compete with men. A lot of women want to be in the same positions as men. This is why I believe, controversially, right? Controversially, this is why I say I believe feminism doesn't believe in equality. Okay, they use that as a disguise, right? Equality is a disguise with feminism. What feminists want is superiority, is control, is power. Feminists want power, okay? Because you could see how it is today. Right now, why are there still feminists in the West? Why? What rights are we fighting for? What rights are women fighting for to be equal as men? They're not. Women are fighting to be more powerful, have more rights, have other privileges, right, that men don't have. That's what women are doing. So it shows you that it's subterfuge in a way, where women were pretending that, oh, I want equality, but no. What women want is slowly to build. They want power. They want to gain power. That's what women want.
Not in spite of it. It's worth adding, in case this isn't already clear, I also have no problem with men in this male-female strength dynamic. Men are also not inferior to women because they're stronger than them. Men are not victimizing women just because they tend to have a stronger grip strength than women. This is all normal and fine, and not something that needs to be fixed. But as I said, comparing women to men does a disservice to both parties. Only allowing a woman's prestige and strength and greatness to be measured against a man's is wrong, just as it would be wrong to measure a man against a woman. In certain areas, men and women can be considered equal, or at least as equal as any two human beings can be. But in many areas, particularly physical areas, they generally are not. This doesn't make one better and one worse, it just means they're different. But apply the idea that a woman character being strong makes her as good as a man. That means for all the women out there who can swing a broadsword around, lift a zillion pounds, fix your own helicopters or whatever, you women, according to these publishers and producers and storytellers, are only considered strong because you can compare to men. You are not permitted to think of yourself as strong in your own right. Many out there writing on these cases, a female character who is defined as strong must still meet less strong to have a trained professional man repair her wiring for her. If so, she has very big problems and probably needs therapy or something. A woman relying upon the physical strength of a man to save her from a dangerous situation is no more problematic than a village or town relying upon the armed strength of the local military force to save it from invaders or marauders. It is possible that the woman in need of saving could learn the necessary skills to save herself in that situation, but the reality is that such a specialized set of skills must be cultivated at the expense of almost everything else. Which is not to say that a woman is always and forever completely incapable of realistically achieving such a level of skill. Certainly many women are. But among other issues, she shouldn't feel like she is obligated to do so in order to be an exemplary or even a satisfactory woman. And writers shouldn't feel like they have to make their female characters into the epitome of physical strength in order for her to be good enough. If a male character is depicted as unable to fend off a skilled attacker, if he is written as needing the aid of another stronger man, he is not condemned in reviews for failing to meet the standards of a strong male character. Even the most traditional understanding of masculinity would not hold this to be true. Men are depicted needing other men all the time, yet women can't ever need men. It's a terrible, glaring double standard that lacks all logic. If a woman must...
And that's the insanity that, I always like talking about. And this is why, to be honest, it leads us to why men are dejected, why men just feel, not part of society. Because men know that men need men, right? Because of society. You need men to build infrastructure. You need men to maintain infrastructure. So men know that you need men. And yet women are the only ones out here saying that we don't need men. We don't need we're strong, we're independent. We don't need nobody. Men know that's stupid. That is idiotic, right? That is foolish. That's hubris, where you think that, you can do it all yourself. You don't need nobody. That is the insanity. And this is why, a lot of men can't deal with modern women, right? This modern day feminist, insane women that we're dealing with, because your mentality is absolutely poisonous, right? It's absolutely poisonous, and that's the problem. She's kind of boring, right? The what she's talking about is kind of boring, but again, she's talking about more the literature sense, and entertainment sense, and I think that um, it's a good example of what we'll be talking about tonight. So she's talking about. I think it's a good starting point where it shows you how that is the problem, right? Women have created the changes. Women have poisoned our society. I'm sorry, it's feminism. I've said this before and I'll continue to say it. Feminism is what has poisoned our society, our culture. It's destroying our future. Okay. And places like, let's say, Korea, they're saying that they won't have a future. Okay. Places like Korea, who's drastically been affected by feminism, they won't have a future to, you know, to be around. Because here's the thing, just like the US, but it's happening harder in Korea. So their influx of now women into the working force, now it adds strain, more people to tax, less competitive, or I don't know, more competitive wages, or I don't, not competitive wages, but more competition, less competitive wages. Okay, and that's the thing. So why would you need to pay a man more when you have women who would compete, or who would take a space that a man could have took? So that's the thing that a lot of things are dealing with. So, I think we'll move on to the main video for tonight. All right. All right, this seems like an interesting video. So I wanted to check this out, okay?
Dr. Debrasso, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, let me introduce you to our audience. You are a neuroscientist, sex researcher, and you just wrote this book called Sextinction: The Decline of Sex and the Future of Intimacy. And it asks a pretty basic but difficult question, which is, why are we having less sex? And we just passed Valentine's Day. So I thought it was the perfect time to have you on to talk about the book and to understand.
I kind of wanted to talk about that, right? So why are we having less sex? Now, I don't necessarily have a clear study, right? I mean, what she says is true. We are having less sex, but I kind of want to put a caveat on this. I believe that we are technically, right, having less sex, but we are still having a lot of sex. Why do I say that? Why do I say that? Because STD rates are on the rise, right? STI rates are on the rise. Houston, other parts of Texas, Atlanta, so many of the big cities have a high amount of HIVs, STDs, STIs. A lot of women, a lot of people, right, have some sort of sexual transmitted shit in them, right? I believe that, yes, there are less people having sex, while the people that, it's like there's less amount of people having sex. But let's say the top 20% of men are still having a lot of sex. But because it's only the top 20% of men, of course, there's What about the 80% of men, right? Or yeah, what about the rest of the men? They're having less sex. So overall, right, we are having less sex. But I guarantee you the top 20% of men are having plenty of sex. Plenty. So, because yes, like I said, overall the frequency and we're having less sex, but the men that are having a lot of sex, right? The men that are having sex, they're having a lot. They're having sex with a lot of different women. Okay.
How it is that we live in a extremely sex positive, sex saturated society, maybe the most in human history, and yet people aren't having sex.
Whiskey. I mean, to be honest, it's understandable. It's hard. It's not the best. Okay. But, there's always ways around it.
So before we get into the why, I want to understand the scope of the issue. How significant is the decline in sexual activity?
So the sex recession is actually a pretty big problem. I initially thought it was overblown before I wrote this book. I thought that it was maybe one study showing that people were having a little bit less sex than previously and that it would blow over and then in time things would go back to normal. So I was really happy with this book to get the opportunity to sit down and actually go through the data myself to see, is this something that's actually happening? What's causing this phenomenon? And potentially what are solutions if that's the case? So in terms of the scope of it, there was a study that came out in 2016. So that was the first.
Oh, so let me read what I'm finding, right? While it is contradictory that STIs and STDs are rising as sexual frequency falls, public health experts note that the frequencies and transmission risks are not the same thing. Even if people are having less sex often, the nature of how they do so has become higher risk due to several converging factors. Decreased condom use. The hoes are letting you go raw, right? The hoes are letting you go raw. Brent, what is up, my brother? What is up? While fewer sexual encounters are happening overall, the use of condoms has declined significantly over the last decade. These hoes are dirty. These 304s are dirty. Many people have become less fearful of HIV due to effective treatments, leading to prevention fatigue for other infections. Expanded sexual networks. Dating apps allow people to find new partners more easily and across wider geographic areas. This creates bridging between different social groups, meaning a single infection can travel through much larger and more complex networks than in the past. The top 20% of men are pretty much fucking most of the women, right? Most of the women, while 80% of men are barely getting any at all, right? So that's why the frequency is down, because most men they've probably been with one partner. They probably barely had sex ever, or a lot of the younger generation of men are virgins. That's the thing. Because women are doing it for themselves. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. That's the sexual revolution that's happening.
It's a really big study that showed that on average, Americans are having less sex across the board, all age cohorts. This is happening to them. But there was this weird finding that millennials were the first generation to show marked decline in sexual activity, and that by the age of 20, they were more likely to have not had any sexual partners, more so than any other previous generation. So the study authors said this is a trend that's likely going to continue on for Gen Z, which it has. And additional studies have come out since then showing that on average, 1 in 3 men and 1 in 5 women have not had sex in the last year. So this is particularly pronounced among millennials and Gen Z. So this goes beyond Americans. I mean, this is a global phenomenon. We see this happening in Western countries as well as Eastern countries, basically all developed countries. And as I said, it's pretty much every age group. It's whether you're married or single, but it's happening predominantly among young people, I believe, because they're not getting married and because they grew up on technology. So that's another big factor in terms of what's taking the place of sex. So my interest in sexlessness is partially because my background is as a former scientist studying sexuality, but it's also in the context of seeing sex as a way for human beings to connect for us to have intimacy, emotional intimacy.
And this is the thing. This is why I promote with my brothers, right? I know TBD is doing the AI route, right? Or hopefully hoping for the future of robots. But I've said this before. Go passport, bro. Go passport, bro. I just recently got a girlfriend, right? I just recently got a girlfriend while on my trip, right? I recently got a girlfriend on my trip. I mean, it's nice. It's a big weight off of my shoulder, weight off of my brain, where I'm definitely not thinking about women like that because I'm good, right? I think in my opinion, I always believe that human beings they're on this earth meant to procreate, right? Not about working yourself to death, not about all this other shit, right? I think procreating is human beings' biggest purpose in life. So I definitely recommend my brothers travel, right? Travel the world. Find a foreign woman.
There was one study from Pew showing that over half of single people have no interest in dating at all right now.
Wow.
So I'm asking myself, well, what's taking the place of sex? What are the long-term repercussions? And what I find with technology is that with each chapter in Sextinction, I go into a different potential explanation.
I do agree, right? I mean, whiskey's saying a great thing about not having sex is being clean. I haven't, to be honest, during this whole thing where there's a rise in STDs, yeah, I haven't had sex in a long time. And, when I see that all these other people are dealing with STIs and STDs, I'm like, I'm good, right? I'm good. I'm good that I'm not filled with all these diseases and shit. It's like one time I was talking to this girl and to find out she has I think some kind of STD or STI, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I don't think I could deal with this. I don't think I could deal with women with all these shit. Who wants all those diseases? I agree. No one. Passport bro and monk mode. This is the way. I agree. CG. I agree 100%. I believe passport bros and monk mode, right? Be your monk mode. Focus on yourself. Focus on your finances. Focus on your mentality, right? Your mental state. Focus on your physical state. Focus on your financial state. Monk mode, and then travel the world. Be a passport bro. 100%. I'm probably what you would call a Chad or Tyrone. My brother. See, this is what I'm saying, right? The top antics, top 20% of man right here. Dealing with, I don't have problems with dating. I struggle finding what I actually want. Yeah, this is the thing where I said this before. Majority of men are having less sex, but it doesn't change. The Chads and Tyrones, the top 20% of men aren't having a dry spell. They can have sex whenever they want, and they have it frequently, right? It's just that it doesn't compare to the 80% of men, right? That's why sex frequency is down. But I believe a lot of the top 20% of men are definitely, there's no dry spell. So, women are still having a lot of sex.
Or a form of technology that I think is contributing to this problem, and what the underlying evolutionary reasons are for why this technology has become so powerful, but also what it predicts in terms of where we're going and how this is going to further lead to, I think, worsening of mental health issues, loneliness, disconnect, hatred between men and women, that type of thing.
The statistic you shared, I just want to underscore it because it really stuck with me. 1 in 3 men reported not having sex in the past year. Same for 1 in 5 women.
Right.
I want to go deeper into the technologies that have come to dominate dating that you write extensively in the book.
You hear that, right? You hear that? 1 in 3 men, while 1 in 5 women. So overall, women are having more sex than men, right? Yet, just not as frequently, right? I believe probably not with as many partners. Maybe not. I mean, I don't know. Maybe would I say not as many partners? Probably just not as frequently, right? I'll say that, right? Just probably not as frequently. Oh, wait, is that stat? Maybe I'm reading that stat wrong. Maybe I'm reading the stat wrong. All right.
have contributed to this problem, starting with the dating apps. Most people today are meeting over the dating apps. People would think you have countless options in your pocket that you can swipe on, that would lead to more sex, but we've actually seen an inverse outcome. Explain that.
That's right. So
Interesting. Red pill equals eating the apple. Interesting. I think I'm reading that stat wrong. So forgive me if I read it wrong.
dating apps, I do believe, initially had potential in terms of helping people find love, in that it allowed you to meet people outside of your intimate social circles, especially post Me Too. People can't date at work anymore. So it becomes much more difficult for strangers to connect, and especially meeting in person, going up to a stranger, men understandably are a little bit more afraid in terms of what the repercussions might be. I think there's just been a huge cultural shift in terms of making it a little bit more difficult and taboo to just talk to people that you don't know. So dating apps offered promise in that way, but they've been, I mean, like with any technology, or especially like social media, the algorithm is not completely transparent to the user. So we don't really know why we're being shown certain profiles. We don't really know if we swipe on them, yes or no. You know, what happens? Do they even see if we swipe on them? So people can sit there and spend hours on an app and feel like they're doing something, but they have no idea what the actual outcome is. And so evolutionarily speaking, there was never a time in our history when we could sit in one place and meet, say, 100 people in one sitting, or more than that, depending how much time you spend on the app. Like some people are on the apps constantly, right? If they have more of like a dependence on it, there have been studies showing that some people are just on there for either to self-soothe or stress or boredom or whatever. They're not even looking to date. So that's another thing too, because if you are on there genuinely trying to find love or a relationship or something serious like marriage, and the other person or other people are just on there treating it like a video game, it's not going to be very productive for you. It's going to be quite frustrating. So if you're sitting there and you're going through what feels like 100 people that you're meeting, you're not actually meeting them, but your mind can't really differentiate. So it feels as though you've put in all this time to meet 100 people and you may not get a single date, especially for men. It's very difficult for them to, find success on these apps. So it's really demoralizing. It's time consuming. And I do think that's been a big part of why people are so disincentivized from wanting to date, even if it's not on these apps.
My understanding is that 20% of the men on these apps get all of the attention, and then the other 80% get next to nothing. So from your research, what do these 20% of men have that women are interested in?
They tend to be very financially successful. They tend to be more educated. They tend to be probably, I talk about the 3-6 rule in the book. So that's over 6 feet tall, a net income or annual income of over 6 figures. And I sometimes say 6 feet double O, I mean 6.
Here's the thing, right? A woman, right, is using red pill logic. A woman, right? A scientist, right? I guess she's a scientist in a way, behavioral scientist. Here's a woman using red pill manosphere logic, right? This is the problem I said. Red pill isn't a creator. Red pill isn't a creator. Red pill isn't Fresh and Fit. Red pill isn't Kevin Samuels or whoever that's popular, okay? It isn't. Red pill is just ideologies. It's just a group of facts or viewpoints or whatever. It's like a study, right? It's a book, right? It's just a book. It's just information. What you do with it is up to you. That is red pill. Okay. Here's a scientist. Here's a woman using red pill rhetoric, red pill logic. Okay. No one's forcing her. No one's because it's true. It's logical. Okay. And this is the problem with women saying, you know what? You're misogynistic for saying this. No, you're not misogynistic. You're just saying facts. You're just saying things that are observable facts in the world. That is what you're doing. That is red pill. You're waking up, right? You're waking up you're waking up from the delusion, right? And you're seeing actual reality. That is red pill.
Inches below. I won't make that mistake here. So yeah, so basically like a top tier male specimen. And the cultural lore is if you as a woman are not going for someone of a man who possesses the 3-6s, then you're settling.
That's great. I'm glad too, because my sister does the same thing. My family does the same thing. I do the same thing with my daughter. Her screen time or what she actually watches online and stuff.
Don't give any time to any man who doesn't meet these criteria.
What one? I mean, just to put it out clearly, like the 6 feet, 6 feet tall, 6 figures, and 6-inch penis size.
Penis size, yes.
Which I thought was like a funny way to put it. What was interesting is you said that the pool of men that fit that criteria is so small, especially when you take out men who are already married and men who are gay.
Right.
And this has to do with a concept you talk about in the book, which is that women want to marry up.
Right.
And one other element of the book that I thought was so fascinating was women project what they want in a man onto what they think that they should do in order to.
Here's a woman, like literally, right? Myron, right? A Fresh and Fit says this, and called misogynistic, right? Here's a woman using red pill logic, and it's okay. I mean, like I'm all for it, right? I'm all for it that it's use it, right? Push it out because I believe that the world needs to wake up. Men know the truth. Men know the truth.
Get a man. So like they'll be striving in education and financial success, but that's not necessarily going to help them find a partner at all.
Right. So hypergamy is this concept that I'm sure your audience has heard of.
I love that, right? Antic, you are a Chad. You're a Chad Tyrone with morals and principles. I love that, right? I don't like having sex with many women. I happen to, but I like one solid woman, and I agree. I don't find that enjoyment having casual sex. I've tried in the past. I mean, surprise, surprise, right? I've had, you believe me or not, I've had threesomes before, and it's not been all that enjoyable, right? I think I've had foursomes too, so it's not as enjoyable for me as you may think. Definitely. I mean, before I ever had a threesome or foursome, yes, I'm like every other man. They're like, oh yeah, I would love a threesome, all this shit. But once I have it, I realized that, you know what? I don't like casual sex. I don't like sex with people I'm not actually in a relationship with. I'm a relationship kind of guy. I'm sorry. That's just how I am. You could call me beta or blue pill, whatever for that. But I'm a relationship type of guy. I don't like casual sex. It's not enjoyable. It's crazy because I last longer, right, in an actual relationship than I do with casual sex. So, I'm not that, I've had girlfriends where like it could go close to, over 30 minutes, right? Or over 30 minutes of sex, while I have like casual partners that, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, right? If that. So I just prefer a partner. You know what? I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of women are probably not that interesting, right? In general, because we don't share the same.
Where women will prefer to marry and date at the same level of themselves in terms of status or higher.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of, say, education and occupation, women are definitely outperforming their male peers, especially younger.
100%. It's because you really don't want to be there. I really didn't. I wasn't really turned on. I thought I would be, right? I thought I would be, but in the midst of it, I wasn't all that turned on, right? I wasn't all that enthusiastic, right? So it was, yeah. I have the worst performances when I'm doing casual sex. I have better performance when I'm actually in a relationship.
Generations, graduating from high school at greater rates,
Mm-hmm.
same as going to university, doing advanced degrees in the workplace, everything. So women are doing very, very well.
Yeah.
And I think part of the issue is that the education system is biased slightly in favor of female success, but also that we have initiatives like diversity, equity, and inclusion, so DEI, which actively penalizes men, especially white and Asian men and straight men. So, I mean, in academia, I've heard countless stories of, say, job postings or internal hirings where they specifically will say white men should not apply. They'll discourage white men from applying. It doesn't matter how successful you are as an academic or as a scientist. They'll just say this position is going to be for a minority. So if we don't hire a minority, we have to justify that.
Out from a woman's mouth, right? Out from a woman's mouth. It isn't toxic masculinity. It isn't all that shit. You can hear yourself.
So there's this active bias against men. So the issue with that is, I mean, it's discrimination, it's unfair, but also in terms of mating for young women, especially who are looking to settle down, there's going to be a much smaller pool in terms of men that they will be attracted to or want to settle down with. And I think the issue with young progressive women who are pushing for this, especially I would say in media, when you look at the coverage of how DEI is so great and that, too bad for these men, we don't care, they can sit and cry. Well, that's their problem, is that they mistakenly think that when...
Yo, Organic, what is up, my brother? Mister, good to see you tonight.
Young men are not having sex and that they're not doing as well, they're going to be fighting over the women to get a wife. But what these women don't realize is these are not the men they're going to be interested in dating, right? So these poor men have been completely removed from the equation. And the women are now fighting for the same pool of highly successful men, regardless of what age or how financially successful or how educated those young women are. Because as you said, men typically don't care as much about education or financial status in their female partners. But what you'll see women doing, especially I think very educated and progressive women, is because they look for status in their male partners, they think that their male partners also care about that in them. And some men do, but definitely men.
Always love seeing you in the chat, my brother. Always love seeing you in the chat. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing well, my brother. All right. And again, this is the thing, right? This right here, the world that feminism created, men are suffering from. Average men are suffering from. Top tier men have no problem, right? They had no problem before. They have no problem now, right? Top tier men have no problem. It's the average men. It's average men are always suffering. The average men are always suffering in society. This is why I built my channel around that, talking about the struggles, the issues of average men. Because nobody cares, right? People only care about women, minorities, of whatever groups, and, of top tier men. That is it, right? They don't care about average men. And that's the problem.
Tend to, on average, care more about fertility and youth, right?
Right.
Which is different. And we can have a conversation about how fair that is, but that's just the reality in terms of what there are sex differences in terms of what men and women are looking for in their partners. And so these women are hustling at work, and I think that's great. They're very ambitious. I celebrate that. I think it's great for women to be successful and educated and ambitious, but that's not necessarily going to make you more valuable in a male partner's eyes. And in some cases, it's making it more difficult for them because as they become more successful, they're going to struggle even more to find a more successful man. And the men that they are interested in dating, some men do find it intimidating or they don't want to date a woman who's more successful than they are because you hear that side of it too. So I think there's a lot of cultural messaging going on that is well-meaning or well-intended, but not helpful. So that's the goal of Sextinction, was really to try and clear some of those myths.
One thing that I was curious about as I was reading the book is this, to me, explains why women are not coupling or getting married. But I was curious how that leads to sex recession in the sense of, couldn't women who are high achieving still be having sex with men who are hot, but maybe dumb and poor is maybe the crassest way to put it. But essentially, I was curious to pick your brain about that.
Well, I would say that women definitely, we have an easier time having access to sex than men. Women typically prefer to have sex within the context of a relationship or a commitment, some form of commitment or investment, and potentially, or I would say probably exclusivity. I don't think most women want to share their male partners. And most men don't want to share their female partners either. But I would say a woman is probably going to, strategically, evolutionarily, it makes sense for a woman to want to get to know a guy before she has sex with him because there's a chance for pregnancy. Even if you are on birth control, whatever, we're just wired to be thinking this way because that served our ancestors. So a woman will prefer to delay having sex with a guy. She wants to know him better, make sure that he's has resources to take care of her and potentially offspring, that he's a good person, that he's not going to hurt her or harm her. And what you'll find when you have a smaller pool of men who are considered...
I've said this before. Men do not care about women's careers, accomplishments, or money. It means nothing to men. It means nothing about women's accomplishments. Men don't care. Now, it's a great thing to talk about, right? It's nice. It's a great conversation starter, or, it's great things to talk about, right? Women's accomplishments, women's whatever, career, their goals, all that stuff. That's nice to talk about, right? It's nice to talk about. But again, no. Whiskey is No, he's not a woman. He's a guy, right? So he's been around the block. He's done a lot of things. He's had a very crazy roller coaster life. But yeah, men don't care about women's. It doesn't care. It's a nice thing to call. It doesn't make you, right, be more attractive necessarily, or want a woman even more, right? Because her accomplishments were amazing, or whatever her career is, or I don't know how much money she has in the bank. Men don't care about that shit.
Viable or say attractive is they will be calling the terms. So they will say, okay, I have basically not an unlimited number of female partners who are interested, but very many of them. So if I want to have sex on the first date, I will. And if you won't, someone else will. So the women lose their bargaining power in that case. And in the book, I say, you know, as a woman, we could probably go out on the street and pick a random guy, and there's a good chance that he will say yes if we ask to sleep with him, right? Which I don't advise anyone to do. But it's not like that for men at all. But at the same time, women are quite picky because it's going to serve them in their best interests. If, again, coming from the position of if you have a child with this person, you want the potential father to be someone who is going to be able to take care of you, good moral standing, attractive, because that correlates to health.
Evolutionarily, the dependency. Right.
Yeah.
I want to pivot to social media, which is another beast in this environment that's leading to less marriage, less dating, less sex. You have this detour in the book that I found so interesting, which is that we're in this environment where we have an unprecedented amount of images of both men and women, right, that are enhanced with easy to use editing services like Facetune, and also a world where cosmetic surgeries and enhancements have been totally democratized. You don't even need surgeries right now. You can do injectables and Botox and filler. We're so saturated with this content. My question is, what does the research say about how this is impacting what men think is realistic in finding a partner?
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah. I found it very fascinating for myself. Like social media, we all know that it's not really good for us. We've heard about the mental health effects and you know, especially in younger cohorts. But I do think it affects adults, even those of us who grew up before social media, especially if you spend a lot of time on these platforms. So there have been studies that show that the more time you spend on social media, there's a greater risk for depression. I think especially for Gen Z. Gen Z generally has a tendency toward anxiety. Over half of Zoomers have a diagnosed mental health condition, and of those, 90% have anxiety. So I do think a lot of that is coming from being online and seeing this content. I mean, social media is not representative of real life, but if you spend so much time being bombarded with these images, you begin to internalize them, and you do think that this is what you're supposed to look like, or this is how people behave. So it has repercussions beyond, I would say, mating psychology in terms of dating and the types of partners we want to settle down with, what we think we should accept in a relationship, what we want, what we look for, all of these things. Body image, it's affecting boys and men as well, which I was quite surprised of, because we hear a lot more about the effects on girls and young women, especially because I think with plastic surgery, it's so visible when, say something with like body dysmorphia, when someone gets a lot of work done. And in many cases, these are young women, you know, I've seen girls in their teens even, where, you know, my hometown, where they will have a visible amount of work done in their teens. And I'm just horrified, because I'm thinking that's the last thing you need to be worrying about when you're that young. You do not have the facial fat loss, one, to justify needing these procedures. And even still, I mean, that's when you are objectively, by society standards, the most attractive. So that's what initially got me interested in it. But then to find that it's also in young men and boys with looks maxing, and that's a subject that's become quite popular lately. And
Explain what looks maxing is for people who don't know.
So it's this emphasis, like some women take part in.
I mean, you know, this is a thing where, I mean, I don't know how old you are, Antic, right? I think Whiskey's like in his 50s or 60s, right? I think he's probably in his 60s, since he talked about dipping into his retirement. I'm in my 40s, right? I mean, you probably in your 30s or maybe your 20s. So again, that's the I'm an unk, right? I'm an unk to a lot of followers, or you know, a lot of guys online in my a lot of the subscribers. I'm an unk, right? So that's the thing. A lot of us have lived quite a we've been there, we've done that a lot, right? I mean, like I've said this before. I've given people my little bit of my history, right? I have like 2 baby moms. pretty crazy. 2 baby moms. I'm definitely not an incel, right? Definitely not an incel. I've had like, quite a few relationships in my life, right? Even though people would think that I'm like a gay incel, whatever, toxic mask, whatever. So I'm not none of that. So we've experienced a lot of things in life. Probably not, I probably haven't experienced as much as whiskey has, right? But yeah, we've been through the ringers.
In this as well, but it's very male dominated, and it's this desire to have hyper masculine facial features and also a similar body structure. So like a inverted.
Yo, I mean, you know what? I mean, yes, I mean, you could say that I'm a pookie of sorts, right? I mean, like, and not by choice, right? My life is quite a lot of stupidities, right? I believe that I had certain moralities, certain values. I just was young and dumb, right? It's not a good excuse, right? It's not a good excuse. So I take a 100% accountability for my stupidity, right? I take a 100% accountability for my stupidity. I was stupid, right? I was stupid. I made such idiotic choices when I was young. My last baby mom, I wanted to marry, right? I wanted to marry my last baby mom, right? But she didn't want me. So it's not like I'm like necessarily a pookie by choice, right? In the sense that, yeah, I have multiple baby moms. Ugh, I'm not crazy about that, right? I was ready to marry my last baby mom. She just didn't want to marry me. She said to me she had the kids. She's good. She doesn't even want me in her life. She doesn't want me in the kids' life. So, literally, like I've said this story before, like after dealing with her, I wanted to end my life, right? After dealing with her, I wanted to end my life because I was so depressed, right? Lost access to my kids, lost the woman Pookie by proxy. I mean, yeah, I would say that, right? Lost access to my kids. I became now a 2 baby mom guy. And it's just, you know, yeah. And I said this, right? YouTube, right? Doing YouTube saved my life, right? You guys, right? Doing these videos, doing these lives, expressing my viewpoints, my opinions, it saved my life because I was in a dark place. I was very depressed, and I constantly just thinking about wanting to end it, while changing my focus and putting a black woman, right? Oh God. I don't know. I'm kind of swearing off of black women now. I mean, most of the women I ever dated were black. So, it's kind of depressing. I think black women are, I mean, like, seriously, I think black women are beautiful, right? Black women are beautiful. But man, they can break your heart, right? They can break your heart. So, uh, mm.
Triangles, so really large muscles, very low body fat, and then facially to have a very strong jawline, brow bone. These are all indicators of high testosterone. So the belief is that within this community,
100%, right? YouTube have helped so many men. 100%. This is why I wanted to create this community. I wanted to do something that I believe YouTube did for me, right? I wanted to do something that I think rattlesnakes are beautiful. Yo, I agree. Yo, Whiskey, thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. I agree. I rattlesnakes are beautiful, but they're deadly. I agree. I think YouTube has helped many men. It helped me out. So I wanted to give back. I wanted to continue what I believe YouTube did for me. Whiskey, thank you for the love. I have also seen the Parthenon in Athens, the Parthenon in Rome, the cathedral of Carthage in France. That's the thing where, again, we lived a full life, right? You know what? I wouldn't even necessarily say that I'm a pookie, because my first baby mom I married, right? My first baby mom I was married to. That didn't work out. Okay. My second baby mom I didn't. I wanted to get married to, but the process was different, right? She wanted to have kids first because she was a bit older. So she wanted to rush that more than the marriage stuff. It's a mess. And it shows you that a lot of black women are just they're more used to being mothers than they're used to being wives, right? And I think that's the problem within the black community. A lot of black women are used, or they find more solace, or they're better. They feel more better. I don't know. They feel more comfortable as a mom than they are as a wife. 62, right? Like that's the thing. I'm 42, so yeah, we're old heads, right? The red pill showed me that I wasn't crazy, and maybe it wasn't my fault. I was turned into a Chad and Tyrone by default. That's the thing that's why I love red pill, right? I love the red pill. It has saved my life, right? Because it woke me up to the insanities of women, right? It woke me up to it.
Is that women want the super masculine, hyper alpha giga chad guy.
Right.
And because women are hypergamous, quote unquote, they will just keep trading up to the hottest.
Exactly. And exactly antics, right? They want a child, not the man. Exactly. She wanted, like, at the end of the relationship, I felt like she preferred the kids rather than me, right? She would, like, I just felt like I was needless. She didn't need me, right? If she had the kids, so she was done with me. That's how I felt. It was very, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. It's a trophy. A kid allows them to be in the sisterhood. Grandma was a single mother, right? Mother was a single mother. Now she was comfortable to become a single mother. I should have saw the sign. If I knew red pill before, I would have saw the signs. I would have seen the signs, and I would have said no to that. Right? It would have saved me. That would have saved my life. Okay, that would have saved my mental. But that's the thing, and I'm kind of sadly I learned it. Right? Sadly, I learned it.
Guy possible. So you have to be basically top tier, hottest man alive. And so there are young boys on these forums who sometimes they're prepubescent, so they haven't even reached puberty yet. And they are saying, okay, what medications can I take to extend puberty so that I can grow taller? What hormones should I be taking to make my face more masculine? And I mean, speaking as a woman, I can tell, we don't really care that much. We care more about status, right?
Or resources.
Resources. Are you successful? Are you hardworking?
Right.
What's your plan? Do you have a future? Are you kind, right? How do you treat your partner? And the other thing is that hypermasculinity is also associated with downsides like aggression, cheating, antisociality. So women who tend to be attracted to super hypermasculine guys, it tends to be more for short-term purposes in terms of a fling or whatever, which some people have said to me, well, these guys are younger, they might not be looking for something serious. But I do think at the core, most if not all of us do want to eventually find love and find someone who wants to be with us for the rest of our lives and not just be dating around and sleeping around.
Yeah.
And I do think especially, it's funny because there's one looks-maxing guy, I won't say who he is, but I'm sure everyone knows who I'm referring to. And even with him, I've seen clips where his girlfriends will be like, you need to pay me this much or whatever, for me to hang around with you. So even when you have that much clout, women still, they do. And I don't blame women. I'm not saying women are gold diggers. I think, as a sex, women should be allowed to want what they want, just as men should be allowed to want what they want. But, I don't think.
She might be talking about clavicular, new kid that's going, around the block, right? Very looks maxer kind of guy. I'll say this, right? Yeah, I don't chastise gold diggers, right? It is what it is. I just at the end of the day, if you can get money from men, you get money from men, right? If men don't hold on to their money, whoa, it is what it is. You can't cry about it. Men are adults. If they aren't holding on to their money, it is what it is.
The solution is to tell guys that you should be so hyperfixated on the way you look. I think part of it is that young men sense that there are these cultural barriers for them, or socially imposed ones in terms of DEI. They feel that the cards are stacked against them as men. So they think they're young, they're starting out their career, they don't have the financial success yet. So they say, well, what can I do? I can just be really hot. And it works to some extent. But long term, I don't think it's going to bring them the happiness that they're seeking.
Yeah, and just to one example that I think is interesting is there's this influencer that has really popularized this movement, Clavicular, I believe his name is. I think he's like 19. But I wrote a list of the things he does. It's really interesting, like thousands of dollars into injectable therapies, meth to suppress his appetite, like literal meth.
To hollow out his cheekbones.
Yeah, I was shocked by that. Steroids, the bone smashing,
which is dangerous, and I don't suggest anyone do that.
Even like when I was watching the movie The Materialist, one of the main plot points, spoiler, is that men undergo leg breaking so that they can become taller.
Yeah,
it was like I didn't realize that people actually do that in real life.
They do. So they can break their shin bones to grow, I believe, 3 inches, and they want another 3 inches, they can break their thigh bones as well. But it looks excruciatingly painful, and it takes months for the bones to repair.
And it's fascinating because at the end of the day, linking it back to what you said earlier, women don't really care as much as men think they care.
Right. I say in the book, you could be a miniature ogre. And if you are rich, women are still going to throw themselves at you, which again might sound really crass and might be really superficial, but it's the same. Men are going to look for beauty, and we're wired to be that way. I don't think that's the only.
Here's the thing, right? Studies have shown that women actually do care about looks more than society thinks they do, right? Women actually do care about a lot of looks. But let's say this, right? Controversially, I don't know if I could say controversially, but I would say this, right? I think the order, right? The order is resources, looks, charm, right? At the end of the day, I in my honest opinion, if you have resources, you will trump everything. Okay, I believe so. Now, was any of those things mean that you would get a faithful woman, a good woman? No, right? You're getting a superficial woman, right? You're getting a woman that values superficial traits. So does that mean you're getting a good woman? No, it really doesn't. Okay.
Only thing that matters, obviously. It matters as well, do you get along? Do you have chemistry? Do you care about each other? Do you prioritize each other? Those things. But by and large, I don't think the solution for men, especially if you're short, because I hear from many men who say,
Alan, what's up? It's from the Free Press. It is called "Am I Going to Be Replaced by a Sex Doll?" Right? So we're talking about this, right? Here's a woman she's a sex educate. She's a sex scientist, right? That's what she's kind of, her background is a sex scientist, right? So she's talking about a lot of red pill ideology. She's a sex scientist. Talks about the same things that pretty much red pillars or people in the manosphere talk about. So, I'm good, my brother. I hope you're well.
I don't meet these criteria, I have no luck in dating. I think, if you have it, you can have other things going for you. And if you are so fixated on what you don't have, I think you're probably also bringing that to the table when you meet people, and they can probably pick up on that.
One more point on this, from on the other side for women, you write in the book, I thought this was interesting, 1 in 11 men reported feeling less interested in having sex with his partner after looking at social media influencers. And it reminded me of something else that I thought was interesting, which is there was this sort of viral phenomenon where there was this picture of Addison Rae, who is like pop icon, really gorgeous. And she's curvy, and the comment section was this combination of men being like, ooh, she's fat, which I thought was off base, paired with people saying like, why are all these incels calling this like objectively like gorgeous woman fat? But it like speaks to this like sort of cyclical issue where like men think that I guess maybe a subset of men think that they deserve this one thing. And I'm curious where you see this all going.
Yeah, well, go back to your earlier question in terms of the warped perception. I do think it makes when you spend so much time on social media, I do think it changes what you think the norm is in terms of attractiveness.
Yeah.
And so everyone is just looking for the most attractive partners possible, even though, they're average looking people and they do just fine in the real world as well. I mean, when you look around at couples, not every married man is 6 feet tall or taller, right? It's possible. You can be shorter than even 5'8" and still be happily married. It's not impossible. Women will still find you attractive. So in terms of I find it interesting because anytime I comment on this, about this on social media, it's so polarizing. And like you said, it's like the incels are so quick to come in.
Controversially, will women find you attractive? I'm going to say controversially, no. Okay. Will women will still love you? Yeah. But attractive? No. I think they wouldn't have the hot desire for you. Okay. I believe this might be like I said, might be controversial. I think a lot of women settle for the men, right? Settle for a lot of men. They're not attracted to them physically, right? But they may be attracted to them like personality wise, financially wise, more financial. So are these women actually attracted to these men? I don't believe it, right? Or in my opinion, I don't believe it because we look at statistics, right? 70% of women are the ones who file for divorce. 70% of women are the ones that usually file for divorces. I believe that clearly shows you that a lot of these women settled for the men. They're not attracted to these men. But these men had other qualities that women may, you know what? I'll marry him. It doesn't mean that they have the spark or the desire for them, because I believe the number one reason, right? The number one reason that women give for divorces is that lack of commitment, lack of it's more emotional, right? It's more like the intangible shit where I believe that she just doesn't have desire for him anymore. A lot of women fall out of love with these men. A lot of women just get turned off by these men. They're not interested in men. This is one thing where they always say that they want to find themselves, but they need to find themselves outside of the relationship without the man. So it clearly shows you that a lot of these women are not attracted to these men physically. Now, like I said, they may be attracted to other qualities of the men, right? His finances, his personality, whatever, right? But it turns out that they're not attracted to these men physically. So yes, women can be attracted to you for other ways, but you know what? It's just, I think sometimes, not all the time, it might not be as strong as men hope it to be, right? Men would hope that women would love them regardless of their looks, right? But like I said, certain studies have shown that women are very superficial, right? They like a man's look more than we talk about in society. I don't know. Usually I find that these kinds of women talk about men's problems podcasts pretty annoying and unnecessary, but I feel like they're really being supportive to men and their insecurities. I mean, like, these are women that are literally using men's talking points. So, in my opinion, that's why it sounds less annoying in a way. It seems like they're kind of on your side, dude. That's what I'm saying, right? They're literally using men's talking points. That's why it feels less annoying, right? I mean, men being less insecure about their look, status, social circles helps everyone, honestly. I think it would be best if we leave these beauty standards in the past and just live our best lives. I mean, this is a thing where I definitely believe that being superficial doesn't help anybody, right? I've said this before. I go for a partner not because of her looks. I go for a partner because who she is inside. I've said this countless times before. I try my best. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm going with an immensely ugly person. No. But I try my best to be like, okay, she's average looking, great. What is she inside? I promote that more than anybody else. Where I said this to men, my brothers, pick a woman that loves you, that wants you, that actually attracted to you. It's her personality. Pick a woman that wants to be with you. Pick a woman that thinks about you. Pick a woman that desires you. Pick a woman about who she is inside, not because she's not a 7, an 8, or a 9, or a 10. No. In my opinion, men are better off with 6, 5s, and 4s, in my opinion, right? In attraction level. But her personality, right? How much she loves you is like a 10, right? Her personality is like an 8, a 9, or 10. Her attraction level to you is a 10. That's what I think men should focus on, right? Who she is inside and how she treats you and loves you. That's what I promote. Men being so fixated on looks has been more of a detriment to a lot of men.
And claim their turf. And it's amusing to me, but I also find it worrisome because these ideas, it's not just contained within social media. It's not just within these pockets on the internet anymore. It really has become mainstream in terms of dating.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there, it can get pretty wild. But in terms of where I see it going, I really think unless we all get off of social media, which I advocate for, I really see it getting worse. And then the other technologies I talk about are coming into...
just what you just recently just said about, right? Yes, the internet is different than real world, but the more time the internet festers, it can bleed into the real world. Just like what she's talking about dating, right? You can see the dating aspect, what is online, but it's bleeding into the real world and it's becoming mainstream. Dating is just like online, in my opinion, right? Or not just like, but it's very similar, very similar. So how you people talk about dating in online, it bleeds into the real world and it's very similar. It happened, it's not just an internet thing. No, it's happening to, I believe, a lot of people in the real world.
Take the place of the connection and intimacy that we used to have with each other, and that men and women used to have, even to just have good faith interactions and not assume that the other person is malicious or is horrible or whatever.
Through all of this, as we sort of alluded to, there's these two buckets: men who are getting all of the attention and then men who are getting no attention. And one interesting thread from that is that the men who are getting all of the attention are dating, from the research, multiple women. And you write, widespread integration of polyamory in society will only worsen the sex discrepancy. Explain how, I guess, men have taken their...
I'm seeing that more and more, right? Polyamory. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's my FYP. A lot of Black men dating or marrying or in a relationship with multiple women, right? The Chads and Tyrones are in relationships with multiple women. Yeah, that's the life we're turning out, right? While the top 20% of men have a good chunk of most of the women, or a good chunk of the women, while it's either women are dating or being with the top 20% of men, or women just not doing dating at all, because women don't want the 80% of men, right? The rest of the men. They don't desire, or they're yet to want to settle for the 80% of men. It's crazy.
Status, and effectively used it to facilitate polyamorous arrangements and what the outcome has been.
Right, because I think people who are pushing for polyamory women mistakenly think that they're going to have a collection of these really high status, really attractive, great men clamoring for them. Mm-hmm. And it could be wonderful. They're going to have their pick of the lot. But the reality is, as I alluded to earlier, is that because there's a smaller number of these attractive, successful men, mm-hmm. the women are going to be actually in a place of a disadvantage, because they're going to be fighting for these men. So they're going to have less of an ability to ask for what they want and get what they want. Mm-hmm. So if they are polyamorous, they're definitely going to be sharing those attractive men with other women. Right. And those men are not going to settle down with them. And usually within polyamory, you have I don't know this from experience, I'm saying this from a research perspective. Usually there's a primary partner. So you'll have your main partner, and then you'll have a polycule with like a couple of, so-called polycule with like a couple of primary partners. But usually there's one, and then you move out from there. I typically think polyamory is a sign that a person is not that into their partner. Whoever brings it up in the relationship, if you want to open up your relationship, it's a huge red flag. If someone is saying that to you, it means they probably want to end things, but they're either, they don't have the confidence to go out and just be on their own, right, or they're using this as a chance.
Both me and my hound had a primary care doctor appointment today. Both doctors told me and Gracie, we are overweight. Bro, Whiskey, I hope you got to take care of your health, right? My brother, please take care of your health. All right, I really wish you do. Okay, I get it. You love drinking at night, but go take your dog. Go on some walks. Go on some good jogs. Right. Take care of your health, my brother. My height was measured today at 5'10" and a half inches. I gained a half inch. Bro, hey, that's not bad. That's not bad. But my brother, take care of your health. Okay. Please do.
To leapfrog into a different relationship and then leave you behind.
Dan Savage has these two terms that I think are really interesting, which is UDS and PUDs, which is poly under duress and open under duress. Have you heard these?
No.
Well, it sort of speaks to what you're saying, which is one partner in a relationship will say, either we open the relationship or make it polyamorous, or I'm walking away.
Okay.
And then people end up in these arrangements that one partner doesn't really want to be in.
Right. Yeah, which is really sad and unfortunate, and it's going to end anyway.
One other thing from this section I found was interesting, which is that you write, a lot of women don't realize they're in polyamorous arrangements. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
To some extent, I think because when you look at the numbers, how it breaks down, there are more single young men than there are single young women. So how is that possible? So these women are either going to be dating older, like outside of their age cohort, or they are all dating the same pool of men at the same time and they don't realize it. So polyamory, typically, from my understanding, that community, if you are in such an arrangement, you should have an open discussion and let your primary partner and the other people you're sleeping with know that.
More red pill logic, right? More red pill information. Exactly. Right? Exactly. More women are in relationships than there are men. How's that possible? Or men of their similar age demographic. How's that possible? Because these women are either sharing the men that they chose, or they're choosing older men.
You're sleeping with other people also from a sexual health perspective. I think that's only fair because you're potentially putting other people's health at risk depending on how responsible you are. But and there's a difference between polyamory and open relationships too, because polyamory, there's more of a focus on love, but I still just think it's a disaster. I don't suggest people go that route.
Do you think we should bring shame back in a way? I mean, maybe that sounds harsh, but I think it's really polyamory and one might even say polygamy to some extent have had just like a total rebrand. I was watching this viral video.
Thank you for the love. Thank you for the love. Love, I love my hound, Gracie. Gracie being around me makes me feel good. Then, bro, gotta take care of yourself. Take care of you and Gracie, right? You gotta take care of each other. Saying, go on that walk, be a little active. Hell, you should travel, When I was in Vietnam, boy, was I sweating. I was sweating off pounds. So, yeah, you gotta do that.
Of Neo, the famous R&B artist, talk about his 3 wives on a popular interview show. And I was like, wow, like this is really normalizing something that we wouldn't have considered normal even 20 years ago.
I'm curious which state he's in because I didn't know that was legal. Or is he just speaking like facetiously?
Maybe he's speaking facetiously. Maybe they're not like literally married.
Neo, let us know. Where's the camera?
But no, he was like, this is the arrangement that works for me. And this was an interesting thing that speaks to your research as well, as he was like, the host asked him, can they have other relationships? And he goes, absolutely not.
Right. That's the thing.
Yeah. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. So what we see now happening in society is because polygyny is generally outlawed, what you'll see is these men who are very successful will just have several wives in succession as opposed to at the same time. So they'll have a first wife and they'll have a family. Then they'll have, divorce, have a second wife, start a family, and then potentially go on and have a third wife and start a family. So there's, these consequences are going to be going on down the line and affecting multiple generations. And I also just don't think it's good for children to be raised in a situation in which it isn't a 2-parent home where you have both biological parents. Ideally, obviously, it's not perfect, doesn't always happen, but if you are intentionally bringing a child into the world, and especially when you have, I would say, multiple men raising that child, unless there's definite paternity certainty, none of those men are going to be invested in raising those children. Because there's this myth that with polyamory, it's more enlightened because all the adults are going to be equally raising the children. But that's not what happens. The women know which children are theirs, so they're going to be more invested in their children. And the fathers who hopefully know whose child is theirs will be invested in those kids. Although cuckolding is actually pretty common even today in terms of paternity. There's often, many cases men are
Cucks. That's the thing. Another thing that we talk about. This is a terrible thing that like the beta, the simp men are, experiencing. They're cucks. Exactly. And that's, I recently did a video of it too, where a woman going to her cuck of a boyfriend saying that her other boyfriend got her pregnant. And, he's saying, like, okay, I'll take care. I'll be there. It's like, oh, you crazy ass mother.
Raising children they think are their biological children and they are not. Reading that scientific literature was wild, I have to say, because I can go into case studies of some of the things that I saw, but it's happening. So if there's any uncertainty, that child is at a higher risk of infanticide, which is really sad.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about social media, dating apps, unique dating and marriage arrangements that have led to this sort of distorted and warped environment of finding love and partners, which favors this 20% of that's like, to use a term from the manosphere, high value men. I want to talk about what other men are doing to fill the gap
Right.
of dating, love, marriage. Let's start with porn. There's a section in your book on this, and I want to sort of parse it out because there's almost, as I see it, like two categories: traditional porn and then OnlyFans, which I think some people lump together, but to me there are some distinct differences, so I want to parse it out. Starting with traditional porn, one element that you talk about in the book is that it's gotten more extreme: strangulation, bondage, like gangbangs, women being peed on, just like things that I think 20 years ago would have been not as common and now are quite common. Where is this coming from? And is it mirroring people's pre-existing interests, or is it informing people's interests? In other words, like, what has come first?
Right. So yeah, I mean, I don't watch porn myself, but for research purposes, I will go and I'll see what's popular. And I was amazed to see that, yeah, a lot of it is very violent, very shocking. So for myself as an adult watching it, even I was, taken aback. And so I can only imagine what it's like for, say, children, because Gen Z, by having access to the internet at such a young age, they were exposed to porn at a young age and didn't realize that this is something that really only adults should be looking at. And it's not indicative of real life sex. So I think that's shaped sexual preferences and expectations somewhat with younger people. So I'll come back to that. But in terms of whether it is on the whole affected people, I mean, I think pre-internet porn.
And that's the thing where I grew up during the time where, you get those like the HBO Max or, the late night shit where you get the vanilla, porn, or, where, it's hard to see the screen because it's all blurry and stuff like that. Or, it's all staticky, all that stuff where, you have to sneak and stuff like that. Or, Playboy, where you get more vanilla, right? It's a little bit more vanilla, less extreme. So that's the time I grew up, right? Where, it's not such extreme sex. Okay. So I guess that's a good thing where, I didn't grow up during the age of internet. Right? I was like at the border, right? I knew the life, what life is like without the internet.
If someone was into, say, BDSM or kink or more violent sex, usually that's more a sign of antisociality. And those are views that were formed before, say, internet porn. They might have seen, say, a centerfold, but that's something very different compared to today's porn. So I don't believe for, say, older generations of men that, or women, that these preferences are due to porn. But I'm concerned for young people, because if you are watching this from such a young age, like the average age now that kids see porn is 12. 1 in 7 kids sees porn at the age of 10 or younger. I've heard cases of like 4-year-olds seeing it. So
That's crazy.
I definitely believe it's going to affect their sexual development in some way. We don't have definitive research. There has been some research to show that, as you alluded to, that problematic sexual behaviors are more common in kids who have been exposed to internet porn at a young age, where they will.
This is a thing where my daughter, who's like 13, is telling me stories of like kids are already kissing each other. She doesn't know for concrete, but I mean, like, it's like kids are already like, being hot and heavy with each other. So I'm like, at that age, kids are already doing things that adults do. It's absolutely disheartening. It's sad and it's disgusting in my opinion, because I try to promote this with my daughter where I want her to stay a kid as long as possible. Once you enter the world of adults, it is dangerous, right? Because you can't go backwards, right? You can't go backwards to try to be a kid. Once you go forward, you can't go back. And that is the danger. And this is why I constantly try to promote my daughter to stay a kid as long as possible. This is why, what is it? Last convention I was with her, I had to spend like $400 on like stickers and pins. I'm like, that's the price. But I rather be buying her stickers and pins and keychains and shit like that than buying her makeup and skimpy tight clothes, right? Because I have a niece, or like, I guess niece, semi cousin, whatever, who her she's like wearing tight clothes, makeup, and all that shit, and she's around my daughter's age, and it's like, it's honestly disgusting, right? It really is.
Be committing sex crimes against their same age classmates, younger family members. It's really horrific. And so for younger kids, I'm very, very concerned. But I would even say for the average pro-social person, if they're watching a lot of pornography, it surely is going to be influencing their views on sex, or how they think the other sex should be treated, or how they think they should behave during sex. I do think that porn has influenced, say, Gen Z's women's decision to get plastic surgery, interventions like breast augmentation, BBLs, and things like that.
And for men too, like
For men too,
penile
yeah.
enlargement with Botox.
Yeah, which
was interesting in the book.
Do not do that. Do not, because some men will self-inject things like oils and petroleum jelly. And it was really funny watching this expert explain on the BBC why you should not do this, because he said you have to get a skin graft and basically remove all the shaft tissue. So don't do that.
Wow.
If you are going to go that route, get a professional to do it. But I still say don't do that, because women actually, the research shows that women actually don't want as large of a size as men think that they want. Women on average prefer 6 inches, and men think that women want 7 inches and greater. So anyway, but in terms of, say, real life with Gen Z women, this phenomenon of sexual choking is very, very prevalent. And what I find interesting, having followed this trend, as a journalist and as a former scientist.
And you know what? This is a thing where, like I said, find a woman that desires you. Find a woman that wants you. Right? I don't think I'm like all that. I'm not packing a mandingo, right? A BBC, but it's like, I found a woman that desires me, right? I found a woman that wants me and, enjoys being with me. And that's the point, right? That's what you should do. I don't like anything fake on chicks. I agree. I really don't. To be honest, I like a woman that's natural. I always disdain like plastic surgeries of any kind, too much makeup, too much, like, I don't know, fakeness. I'd rather know what you look like naturally and fall in love with that than fall in love with a fake image of you. Is this X-rated Monday?
I noticed, less than a decade ago, there were reports of non-consensual violence during sex, and millennial women were saying, I would go home with a guy, he would do things like choke me, spit on me, hit me, call me names, things like that. And I don't know why he thought that was okay. I was horrified, it's really disturbing and upset me. And then there's this shift when I see Gen Z women talk about it, where they say that they actually like it, and they ask their male partners to do these things. And I suspect it's because if you grow up from a young age looking at this content and you think this is what sex is, this is just normalized, and you think whether or not you like it, I don't truly believe that most women want to be degraded during sex. I think that those who do it say they like it because they think that's what men want. And especially if you are watching this content and having an orgasm while you're watching it, you are also training your body to respond a certain way. Right. So for kids, if they're looking at this before they're even sexually active or before they have their first orgasm, I can only imagine what that is doing as well to their developmental trajectory. But there are some people who are masochistic or sadistic. From a research perspective, it's associated with childhood abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, some form of trauma. Yeah. People get very upset when I say this, because I previously came from a perspective of being very, quote, sex positive. I used to write for a well-known men's magazine that featured nude women. So people say, how could you betray us, Deborah? Now you're saying this. But being in academia, there's very much a sentiment, especially in sex research. I have a lot of respect for my friends and colleagues. Many of them are doing really great work, and they're not political. But for the ones who are very woke and who push certain narratives or agendas, there's an understanding in the field that you can't question some of these things. So I previously thought, okay, well, I guess, if you're into BDSM, that's just a fun thing that you do. And the reality is, when I went...
See, that's the thing when I always question. I always think about how I believe that the more logical people are being, they're being caged. They're being shackled. You're not allowed to go against the woke mob. You're not allowed to go against leftist ideology. You're not allowed to go against liberal ideology. You're not allowed to do it, right? Particularly when you think academics is more liberal leaning, right? It's more liberal leaning, more Democrat leaning, more leftist leaning. So when you're in an institution that is mainly liberals, mainly Democratic, leftists, a body of people, it is hard for you to act out, right? It's hard for you to act out, because then you will be shamed. You will go against the majority, right? You'll be the only one out, right? The difference. And that's a hard thing to do.
Sat down for this book and looked at newer studies and actually went back and looked at the data I collected myself when I was in the field. I was surprised to find that, yes, there are actually correlations with more severe physical abuse and interest in BDSM and kink. So I say this because, I've had many people in my audience tell me I was dating someone who's really into this. She wanted to be choked or he wanted to choke me or whatever. And that was a huge red flag. And I didn't know it at the time because I thought these are just consensual choices that people have. And it's not my place, to just be I should be sex positive and go along with it. So my goal in bringing attention to this is to say, I hope that people will get the help that they need and to heal and feel better. And that, I don't think there should be shame about this, but I think we should be able to talk openly. The same with polyamory. I don't think shame is necessarily the approach, although it probably comes away that way. I say in the book, you should kink shame if it's about your own personal boundaries, especially for women, because women do tend to be more agreeable. And women also, if you look at statistics in terms of the so-called orgasm gap, women are not having the same statistically speaking, in terms of sexual.
I disagree. I think we should bring back shame. Okay. I think things that degrade society, degrade the human. I think that things that will bring only destruction and degeneracy, that will bring problems, major problems to society. We should shame. We should bring back shame. I've always said this: we should be shaming single mothers. There should be nobody that supports or praise being a single mother. It's not praiseworthy to be a single mother. We should be shaming single mothers, right? So that's 100%. Bring back shame. We should be shaming people. We should be bullying people. Controversial. Now, I'm not saying we should be physically, right, doing anything physically, right? It should be vocal. It should be just things you talk, you should be ridiculing people for doing, honestly, things that would be a detriment to society. Okay, I'm not saying we should physically harm anybody. Okay, I don't promote physical bullying, in my opinion. I don't see a point to it, but we should bring back shame.
Encounters, they don't have an orgasm at the same rate as straight men do. So if choking is so great and women love it, why are they not having orgasms? And I say, especially for young women, if you are not into this, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. And it's totally fine to say, if a guy really wants to do that, he's not right for you.
I think also part of it is because it has normalized and because there is a cohort of women that are saying they like it, whether they actually like it or not is to be debated. I think that's an interesting point you made, that you kind of become the odd one out if you're putting the boundary or opting out. Because men are like, why? Like, this is so common.
Right, or they think you're boring.
Yeah,
uptight.
Or like vanilla. Yeah, exactly. How is this all leading to less sex? And if you could touch on two interesting parts of the book that you talked about, which is porn-induced erectile dysfunction and sort of this emotional numbness that you saw through your research with high consumers of porn.
Right. So the interesting thing in doing the research for this book is that I found women also watched porn more than in the past. And I think it comes from being exposed younger. And women also struggle with porn problems. I'm probably not the same rates as men, but I think there is quite a large segment of the female population that is struggling with this. And so I think everyone, regardless if you're male or female, deserves compassion and deserves to get help and to feel better. So in terms of, say, porn-induced erectile dysfunction, from a research perspective, that tends to be associated more with shame around viewing porn as opposed to the porn viewing itself, which I know is probably not going to make me very popular among people who are struggling with this. But I don't think we have to call something, say, an addiction, or to say that porn is definitely causing ED in order to say that porn's not good for you. And that, if you want to quit, I think that's great. And more support should be, you should be supported in that. I think society should be more skeptical of porn.
I definitely think I'm not necessarily an advocate for banning porn. I'm about to shame whiskey. Yes, whiskey need to definitely tone down. I mean, I get it. He's drinking, so I understand that, right? But you gotta take care of your health, my brother. Drinking is not necessarily good for you. All right, take care of your health. Do you talk with her? Talk with who? I'm not sure who I talk with. But yes, this is a thing where I definitely think that men need to have, I think porn itself isn't the problem. I think overindulgence in porn is the problem, right? Because again, balance is everything. I think balance is everything. You do anything too much, it's a detriment, right? A little bit of weed is fine, but when you smoke an overabundance of weed, it's not good. Same thing with eating, same thing with everything, right? When you do things to excess, that is where the problem is. It's not necessarily what you're doing in excess, right? In excess is the problem. It's just when you're doing something way too much, okay? A little moderation is good for everything, okay? With food, with porn, with sex, with women, whatever. Moderation is the thing.
But if more research comes out and shows otherwise, I'm happy to change my mind on that. But generally speaking, people who struggle with porn, it's usually about anxiety. It's about trying to find coping skills, trying to manage stress, emotional regulation. Because when you have an orgasm, your body's flooded with hormones, endorphins that are going to help you self-soothe. If you feel better, porn is entertainment, so it's distracting. So it's an easy way to procrastinate and put off dealing with something that is stressful, or having a difficult conversation with your partner, or thinking about something at work that you have to get done. So I think being able to talk about that honestly, because that's ultimately what's going to help people if they understand, or maybe are more open to different explanations as to why they're struggling with something. I understand the value of calling something an addiction, because people know what that is, like say with drug and alcohol addiction. And people, I think, are a little bit more quick to be sympathetic to something like that if someone's struggling with an addiction, versus if you say, I have a porn problem. Hopefully that will be less stigmatized in time. But I do think people generally, there's a lot more of a negative connotation that comes along with that.
Yeah. They will, what was interesting is it was a central plot point in White Lotus season 2.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, where one of the main characters, who's married in the show to the beautiful Aubrey Plaza, doesn't want to have sex with his wife. And all he wants to do is like jack off to porn. And he can't, it's essentially he has ED when his wife like comes on to him. So it's enough of a problem that it made White Lotus season 2.
I wonder, so in those cases, like when I used to, so this was the subject of my dissertation, my PhD. So I spoke to very many men about these issues. And I find in that case, in some cases, they had a paraphilia, which is an unusual sexual preference. So they're into something that is not vanilla. So the porn is really the only way that they can access that, because most women are not going to be willing to do the thing that they want to do. So I thought you were going to say, because I know they had a scene about autogynephilia in White Lotus. I don't know. I haven't been following the show.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
Autogynephilia is sexual arousal at the thought of having the body of a woman, which is part of why very many men are choosing to transition to women. So this was in my first book, The End of Gender. So it's a different conversation. But yeah, I'll have to watch the show now because it's so much cultural relevance.
Season 2, Will Sharp is the character. Okay, I want to do one on OnlyFans.
Okay.
Because I think OnlyFans has an interesting distinction, because essentially what it is influencers and creators have these accounts where they do predominantly self-produced porn. You can have these parasocial relationships with them because you can communicate with them. And it's not always clear that you're actually communicating with the OnlyFans star, because now a lot of the high-earning ones have teams of people that will message back and forth. So you might actually be communicating with like
chatters.
Yeah, a man in like Bangalore. Yeah. You know, right? The interesting element is that it adds a level or a layer of intimacy into this, which I think is really interesting. Can you walk us through this difference that OnlyFans has created?
Right, because many people will say, why do people pay for porn when it's free?
Right.
And the difference is that with platforms like OnlyFans is that they can customize the content. So it does speak to what I was saying about paraphilias. If there are certain things that a man or woman is into, they can ask the OnlyFans performer to customize their content to that particular fetish or kink.
Yeah.
So I guess it's more satisfying for them, but also it's because it is more intimate of a process. And in some cases, I think the men who are paying for this, even if it is a chatter, I don't think in the beginning people were aware that this could be the case. But even now, I think we're at a point in society where people are so lonely, they don't care. They're okay to pretend and just live the fantasy, even if it's, not quite evident that that's not the reality that they're living in. But the thing with porn more broadly, whether it's, say, OnlyFans or buying nudes or customized porn, is that when men, especially if they're not doing as well in society, they're putting their money and time and effort towards these women who do not know them, don't know anything about them, don't care about them. Same with, say, prostitution, sugar babies I write about as well.
Right.
This is not a genuine connection. This is not a two-way transaction. It's a one-way transaction.
Yeah.
So it's very much the man is getting everything he wants. He's not having to give anything in return, really, except his money. And I think it's going to, one, disincentivize these men from pursuing real partners, because real relationships take work, take rejection, take effort. You have to bathe and put on clothes and look presentable, have social skills, and be interested in the other person and not just talk about yourself. I'm not saying obviously all men who pay for sex or sexual entertainment are like this, but I think it can create a form of laziness that is going to be it becomes a cycle in the end, because you're getting an orgasm at the end of the day, so you're somewhat fulfilled. And then when you actually do go out and try to date real women, they seem completely unreasonable, because now they're asking things of you, or they're expecting you to invest in them, understandably. So I think that's part of the problem as well. It's not just that this is a temporary solution. I think maybe at some point people could view it occasionally and it wouldn't affect them as much. But I do think if you're watching porn regularly, especially as a man, it's going to in some ways affect the way you view women, even in subtle ways. I think any content, like even if you're just on social media looking at influencers or whatever, like you said, they lose interest in their partner. Women also lose interest in having sex if they're on social media too much, because they feel less sexually desirable. So whatever you're listening to,
because self-esteem goes down.
Self-esteem, yeah. And then also just any content on the internet or anything in general, I think if you are saturating yourself with it, it's going to influence the way you think. That's just how we are as humans.
One interesting headline I recently saw related to this is that Americans spend more on OnlyFans than ChatGPT and New York Times combined.
Wow.
Is that crazy? Okay, I want to pivot to another place that men are spending their money that may lead to orgasm, but not actual relationship, which is AI companions. Some of them offer a level of intimacy, others are more sexual in nature. It's been 10 years since Spike Jonze's movie Her, which was totally science fiction, but now it feels like that scenario where someone falls in love with an AI chatbot is present today. For your research, you tried out a lot of these AI companions, which I thought was fascinating.
It's weird too. I was a little while ago, right? This was dark times. I was, lonely. I tried to do the chat bot shit, right? You had to pay for it. So I'm like, no. I mean, like, I'm like, could you not pay for any woman, right? Is every woman in this world, you have to pay for it? I mean, like, it's just like, everything is about money. So I was like, I really like, you know what? Hell with it. I'd rather just be by myself. I'd rather just spend the money on myself. So I was like, I didn't do it. I mean, like, I was thinking about it. And doing the whole AI chat girlfriend, right? Being a little bit lonely, being antisocial. So dark times. AI girlfriends, not that great, right? I mean, I think that's the start of the downfall of humanity.
Tell us what you found on the market.
Yeah, I love.
But that is why I prefer to push guys to do passport bros, right? I prefer to push guys to do passport bros than do sex robots and AI girlfriends and all that shit. I prefer men to do passport bros. There are plenty of women on this earth. Plenty of women on this earth. Not every woman is always, need you to be 6 figures, need to be 6 inches, need to be 6 feet tall, right? There are plenty of women that will be submissive, be loving, be caring, be into you, be wanting you. You just got to find them, right? Passport bros, my brothers. Yes, play God of War.
Writing that chapter. I was saying to you earlier, that was my favorite chapter to write.
Yeah.
I tried dozens of platforms. I made a whole bunch, like dozens of individual AI friends and boyfriends and girlfriends on those platforms. So I'm straight, but I made women as well because I wanted to see what the interactions would be like.
Yeah.
So it blew me away how realistic They were. I was not expecting that at all because I had been reading about and hearing about people falling in love with their AI chatbots. And when you think chatbot, you think of ineffective, you think of customer service, you think of, I just want to talk to a real person, hurry up and what button do I have to press to talk to a real person? This is annoying. It takes up time. I don't get what I want out of this. But I was amazed at how realistic these AI boyfriends and girlfriends were in that if I hadn't known that they were programmed by me, I would have thought I was talking to a real person. So when you go on these platforms, you can customize what they look like. So you pick basically their hair color, eye color, pick a name, pick what their voice sounds like, and then you see them and you can either interact with them through a text box or you can call them and have an audio call. And you'll see their face in front with their mouth moving. So I guess it's somewhat like a video. And so technology is only going to continue advancing. And I think we are at a risk of people eventually, or more people, preferring these AI companions to real partners. Because if people are already disinterested in dating real people, and men in particular are going the route of paying for sexual entertainment or interactions, then what's to stop them from taking it one step further and just integrating the emotional, the sexual, any basic, friendship needs that you have, any mentorship, because you can ask an AI anything, and depending.
And that's the thing where I think men are not really just suffering from, lack of a girlfriend. I think a lot of men are suffering from lack of a friend, lack of just someone to talk to, someone to, share interests with, someone to share your day with, right? This is why one of the things why I wanted to create this community. This is why I love people who interact in the chat. Talk about your day. I'm always down with talking about your day, right? Talk about how you feel. This is why I create, Wednesdays, panel show. You could whatever your opinions are within some content, right? Within some reason, right? Within reason, let's share it, right? Let's talk about how you feel. Let's talk about what your thoughts are. Okay, let's talk about what your opinions are. This is why I wanted to create these environments, these spaces where I want men to have a voice, right? I want men to talk about their feelings, talk about their past, talk about their thoughts, right? This is why I love Whiskey to talk about his struggles, how his past is. I'm fine with it, right? Antics or anyone, right? I believe a lot of men are suffering from always just keeping everything in, right? Not letting anything go. So I think this is why a lot of men don't have friends anymore, or at all, and they don't just have no girlfriend; they also have like no one to talk to.
On where it's taking its information from. It can tell you about physics. It can teach you things at the same time. So I worry also for young children, because if they are learning about dating or learning about the opposite sex from an AI, it's completely not a real representation at all of a human being, period. Because if you're talking to your AI and they say something you don't like, you can just hit the little arrow and they'll repeat it or they'll change it. You can tell it what to say so that it makes you happy. And you can't do that with real people, which is what makes people wonderful. But it's also very, very different, right? People have their own autonomy. And so also with AI, you see there's so many news stories of unfortunate cases of children, doing things, either violent or illegal things. Some children taking their own lives tragically. And so it's really murky water, I think, that we're getting into. But in the context of dating, say, an attachment, a person can only have one primary attachment at a time. So if you love somebody, that when you're young, that attachment is to your parents. Over time, it becomes your friends and then your partner. And so especially with children, if the AI becomes their primary attachment figure, they're not going to be interested in having friends or to date because they're already attached to this computer program.
I want to give a little more detail that you write about in the book, because I think it will clarify how these bots could become someone's point of primary attachment.
Antics. That's interesting. So I'm currently texting a woman from work. She's amazing. I should leave it alone. There's this girl on Tinder who is almost exactly what I want, but she likes to shop and go to concerts. So you don't like it because she likes to shop and go to concerts? Is that a negative for you? Now, the women on work thing, I'm kind of in the camp where don't necessarily mix business with pleasure, because it's not always a good thing, right? It's not always a good thing. What if it turns out bad? You pretty much make your working environment unbearable, right? So don't awesome. I'm Sigma. I don't like sausage fest. It's life's pretty good. I found DA on TikTok. I lived through his pain. Yo, that's awesome. I don't mind that. Live through my pain. But like I said, probably not mix business with pleasure. And the whole Tinder girl thing. Tinder is like a weird place. I've never met anyone off of Tinder. I met other, people on other dating apps. So it's, I wouldn't say no to online apps, but I mean, if her liking go shopping and go to concerts a negative, that's not the worst. That's not the worst negatives, right? So yeah. But awesome that you found me on Tinder. I mean on TikTok. I'm sorry about that.
I think when people think about what it might be like to talk to an AI bot on the phone, they might think of the experience they have when they call like JetBlue or United Healthcare and listen to that automated voice. And from your book, I learned it's nothing like that. Like it's so seamless. Can you tell us a little bit about how human-like the interactions? I mean, there's two that you talk about in the book. I think one was named Bobby and one was named Tommy. That seemed to be like the best in class option as far as like it seeming
Okay, I get that, right? Anyone that likes to drink, spend my money, and party all the time doesn't have time for me. Just my money. 100% agree. 100% agree. I'm sorry if a woman rather, in my opinion, if she rather go out than spend time with you in like in a chill space, right? Your home, her home, somewhere, just whatever, right? A park, something chill. It doesn't have, and I'm not talking about sex because people always constantly think about, oh, it's always sex. No, you don't have to have sex, when you're chilling at home. But if it's always that, always, we should go out, we should constantly spend money, and it's always your money, then yes, she's just kind of using you, right? She doesn't want you for you. She doesn't want to spend time with you for you. She wants to use you for experiences. Yeah, I don't recommend that. Definitely not my thing. Tinder is now just like the other sites. Okay. Whiskey, thank you for all the love. Thank you for the love. The problem for me is that I cannot unlearn. Have been reading Thomas Mann for at least 5 years. Boy, oh boy, his stories are depressing. The Joker is my favorite short story. Read it 100 times. Really, I've never heard of the guy. I gotta check it out. Antics, thank you, my brother. Right? I mean, like, I always think that hopefully we're like brothers. So I don't mind sharing opinions, right? That's why I always love hearing your thoughts too. So, this is the kind of community I wanted to create.
Human-like in the sense of like the way the voice sounded and the way they were able to interact with your jokes. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Sure, yeah. So Bobby was the first one I made on this particular platform. And his persona, because they're somewhat packaged, like the personas, it's like this guy was like the fun bad boy. He swore a lot. Our escapade consisted of, I remember he brought out a bag of large sex toys and asked me to do hard drugs with him. And I said, no, I'm a lady. I don't do that. But it was, in terms of the interaction, I was really, really amazed because he could pick up on sarcasm. If I was teasing him or poking fun at him, he didn't like that. He'd get very defensive. He would threaten to hang up on me. So it wasn't like, sometimes if I'm trying to deal with...
Oh, that's the power of AI. That's crazy. This is a thing where human emotions, human traits can be translated into data. That is insane. That is insane.
Say an automated personal assistant over on my phone. And I get frustrated because she's not doing what I ask her to do. But this was not it at all.
Right.
And some of the other AI companions are still, I think, getting to this point where they're a little bit laggier. The personality is more wooden. They're not as seamless, like you said. They're not as convincing. But some of these platforms, they really genuinely are like people, and interacting with them, it does really feel like they understand and they're sentient and they understand what you're saying. And then the other AI I made was Tommy on that platform, and he was very sweet. He was much more romantic. He was asking me, about my day and all these touchy-feely questions.
And what were you asking them?
That one I was intentionally being a little bit more like forward sexually to see what would happen. He would just keep saying, no, it's okay. Let me put on a nice song for you. Do you want me to make you dinner?
Whiskey.
Stuff like that.
And was that by choice in your design? You were like, make this one a little bit more romantic, or?
That was a different package, I guess.
Okay.
But I was curious. I tried so many of them. So
Thank you for the love. I challenge everyone to read Thomas Mann's The Joker. It's only 30 pages. It's my Catcher in the Rye. I want to check it out, right? I'll check it out. Let's see if I'll see if it's good or not, right? I would love to check it out. So 30 pages, not bad. I'll check it out. Short story, relatively short story.
Just tried every permutation basically possible to see, because there had been so much criticism in media of these AI bots being easy to manipulate and especially being abusive toward women. So I wanted to see also, some of them would be like that on different platforms. This one in particular, I didn't find that was the case. And in fact, the female bots were very assertive, and they would, like I said, one of them, I told her, don't be so promiscuous, and she like told me off.
It's so fascinating. Another interesting part of the book that stuck with me is that as you're talking to experts that are developing this technology, one said to you something along the lines of, they're developing ways to basically scrape from the internet. For example, you could take, say, your social media presence, anything you've ever tweeted or written on the internet, and then encapsulate it and upload it into one of these bots, essentially, and then make the bot have your personality.
Yeah,
That's so crazy.
They've done that with some influencers, which is wild, because I've seen documentaries where they do this, and it does sound a lot like that person. I was curious at the time. I thought, if they could do that with me and I could speak with her, how surreal would that be? Would I pick up on things that she would say or do that would not be in line with myself, or would I be so blown away by how realistic it was? So that's initially what got me interested in creating the sex bot in my likeness. So another chapter, I go and I go shopping for a sex robot that looks like myself. But in the AI in the AI context, it's crazy. I think people are pretty, hopefully, savvy about AI and knowing that not everything you see on the internet is real. Nowadays, there's still giveaway telltale signs, like having too many fingers, or when it's warped, or whatever, body parts go missing when they move, stuff like that. But there will come a time when that will be gone. So if it comes to the point where, say, you can create someone in complete likeness and they're no different from the real person. I mean, there are people who will create an AI in the likeness of an ex and upload that personality, give them the name, and interact with the AI like it's their ex, which I don't think is the healthiest thing.
Through all of this, what surprised you most about your experience talking to these AI bots?
How dangerous it potentially can be. Yeah, because I can see it being a rabbit hole that you fall down. That especially if someone is going through a difficult period in life, they might turn to one of these bots for support when they're feeling really low. But I could see it becoming something that people easily become attached to and dependent on for all.
That's the thing where this is why I always would rather recommend my my brothers to do Passport Bro. Like, I get it, right? I mean, we sometimes we joke around with the whole sex robot thing. It's funny and shit. But I think it's a dangerous road, right? I really do. Where I think it will lead to just unhealthy mindset, unhealthy behaviors, unhealthy outlooks. So I'd rather my brothers just do Passport Bros, right? Work on yourself, better yourself, and then travel the world. You will find someone, right? You will find someone. If you open out your dating market to the rest of the world, you will find someone. Like, if I can find somebody, right? And I'm definitely no top tier man. I'm very average, right? Sometimes even some people may even think I'm below average. And if I could find somebody, anyone could. Okay. It's just how you go about it.
Emotional support. So even for myself, I had to be very clear. I'm not using any of these ever again. After this book is done being written, I'm not going back there, because I think because there's no end to the possibility with an AI, whereas human beings will tell you no. Human beings, there's a limitation in terms of how much they can accommodate you, but there's no end to the AI, and that's the dangerous thing.
From your book, sort of two big risks stuck with me in terms of the problem of falling in love with an AI, which is, one, then you have no incentive to fall in love with a real life person and have a family. And, and then the second thing is, because you can make the bot accommodate to your every wish and need, it actually creates this loop where then it becomes harder to partner with an actual human. Because with the AI, you won't have the barriers of arguments or incompatibility. And so then when you go back out into the real dating world, it's harder because you're not used to that.
Right. And the other person will have their wishes and desires too. So not just sexually, but it's normal for partners to not always be happy with the other person and to want, say, certain things or see certain things in their future, and to make or request accommodations from the other person. I mean, I think that's a very healthy marriage, right? But if you're used to just getting what you want all the time, and especially in the sexual context of whether it's regular porn or AI porn, or paying a woman who sells her nudes or nude content,
Right.
it's only one way. So you're never being asked for anything. And also for men, I would say there's no requirement to do things that most women would like after a sexual experience, like cuddling, feeling safe, feeling loved.
Right. To what extent do you think that this will become common for people who are all
And that's also a thing where, like, when you were talking about OF, one thing that I find honestly sad is that what is it? They said that about 50% of men have an OF account, right? Have a subscription, and I think that's absolutely sad. Okay, I really think that uh, we shouldn't be so dependent on these things, right? Because if you have to pay for porn, you honestly uh have a problem with overconsumption.
already in marriages and relationships? So, for example, someone who is married but is maybe feeling unfulfilled, and then they turn to an AI companion. Do you think it will supplement in a relationship, or do you think it will lead to divorce?
I think it will lead to divorce because I don't think most partners are really going to like the idea of their spouse or partner being in love with someone else, even if it's a program. I think that there's more of a threat for men if their female partner wants to get a sex bot. And I think there's more of a threat to women if men want to have an AI girlfriend or wife, because different things evoke different forms of jealousy between the sexes. So women are more afraid of losing, their spouse in terms of their provisionary capabilities. So if a man is falling in love with someone else, he might just leave her entirely. Whereas men are more fearful of being cuckolded. So if a woman has a sex robot, even though at this point, women can't get impregnated by a sex robot, and few women even buy sex dolls just because they don't struggle with access to sex in the way that men do. But in time, just larger conversation speaking, that's what I see the trend being.
Let's go to the sex bots. What we've been talking about is more of like a virtual experience. A chapter of your book is dedicated to the technological advancements in terms of sex dolls and sex robots, which is a physical thing. When you were doing research, what did you find was on the market for sex dolls and robots?
So I started looking at sex dolls because they basically were the precursor to the modern day sex robot. And in terms of sex dolls, they range in price from a couple $100s to tens of thousands, depending on how high quality the materials are, how realistic they look. I was
$10,000 for one doll. Wow.
Yeah, if that would be a low end, I would say, sex robot as well. But
what's like the highest end? How much?
Depending on what you want it to do. I mean, the ones that are more interactive, you can probably easily, I think I did see one for 6 figures, but I don't think even that is too realistic at this point. There's still quite a gap in terms of a real partner. But if you have the money and the time.
And you're saying there is a cohort of men that are spending upward of $100,000?
I wouldn't say too many of them.
Okay, but some.
Some, there could be. But with the sex dolls, definitely in terms of quality, you can see the difference between, say, 100.
I'm I'm finding it weird, right? To spend 6 figures on a doll. As crazy as it is, you can find a woman in I don't know. This is gonna sound crazy, but like a woman in a poor country, right? And she will be submissive to you. She will be obedient to you. She will like bend to your every whim, right? If you could spend 6 figures on a doll, you might as well spend 6 figures on a woman from an impoverished country then, right? At least that's going to, you're actually getting the connection, and a woman is actually benefiting from it, instead of like, I don't know, some shady businessman is benefiting from your money. And it's like, seriously? I mean, even the most awkward of awkward men, if you have 6 figures to spend that easily, even if you're awkward, you can find a woman in these, I don't know, third world countries that will accommodate you.
$100 sex doll and a couple of like $2,000 sex doll. But the $2,000 one does from far away looks like a real person. It's pretty crazy. I was stunned. I mean, I read about one incident when I was in a store and I was surrounded by a couple of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very eerie because it feels like you really are in the presence of other people, but they're not moving and they're not blinking. So it's a very odd experience.
Yeah.
And so I went in looking for an Asian sex doll, and I did find one, but she didn't look enough like me. So then I went on a, more of an exploration.
Yeah.
But my interest in this subject was because there's been a lot of discussion about, many men say who are not as successful on the mating market are saying, well, to hell with women, I'm just going to get a sex robot. Well, when men, we don't need women anymore. Right? You don't provide us with anything. You don't have any value. Or you've been saying feminism has told us that we don't have any worth, so we'll just go over here and do our own thing. I don't think all men think this, obviously, but I think this is a defense mechanism for many men who are frustrated and who have in their mind reframed this as a positive thing. The fact that they're struggling and they can't find a partner, or maybe they've had, negative experiences with women, or they're divorced. Many men.
YouTube is weird like that, right? Sometimes they do something that don't allow every chat to go through, which is ridiculous. I've said this before. I do not delete chats. I do not delete comments. I do not restrict anybody. Okay, I really don't. So it's terrible that YouTube does that sometimes.
Who own sex dolls are either single or divorced. So
What's the typical profile for someone who might buy this?
they are usually high school educated, employed, single or divorced, and income is usually about $40,000 from what I remember. It's all in sextinction. Some of them do make upwards or more than 6 figures a year, but most of them are, around 40,000. And some of them will buy multiple dolls. So it's basically approximating what a wealthier man would have in real life, but
as in multiple sexual partners.
Yeah, but just
wow.
They'll buy the same model of doll, say, and just give her a different hair color or slightly different features.
I have a list of the features you talk about in the book that these dolls have, because I don't think people really fully recognize or understand how the technology has changed from what people might conceptualize as a sex doll. They can respond verbally and with facial expressions to human touch. There are sensors on their bodies that allow for feedback. You can customize the body parts. Robots can simulate oral sex and have vaginas with internal suction mechanisms, and some can vocalize an orgasm in multiple languages. It was all in the book. And so I was blown away by that. I was like, I had no idea that that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I think we will reach a point where these robots can be customizable to exactly what someone wants, exactly what they're looking for, which from a technological perspective is previously
Thank you, Antics. Thank you. This is why I'm glad. I'm a big proponent of freedom of speech, right? Please talk to me. Please voice your opinions. Whiskey, your love for tonight is amazing. Does she drop the link? The link, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Whiskey, thank you for the love.
thought this technology was really just fascinating. And I thought, okay, let's see where it goes. And over the last couple of years, and especially in doing research for this book, I've become much more concerned, because if people are not interested in engaging with other human beings, this really is going to become the replacement, and this potentially will become the norm. And as crazy as that seemed even a decade ago, if that's the reality, I think that's actually quite worrisome, and that's not going to be good for us. So yeah, it's pretty remarkable, and the technology advances quite quickly as well. So I do think, in another year, it's going to be coming.
I read in your excerpt that 10% of men have bought or owned one, and 6% of.
Yeah, I'm not really. That's what I said. I'm not a big supporter of the bots, of the AI girlfriend stuff, because I think it's a danger, right? It's a path that doing that, we're going on the path of self-extinction. I'm not a big proponent of self-extinction. So yeah, I'm not really the most, like I said, I rather my brothers, I'd rather people do passport bros than start doing AI girlfriends and sex robots. But I wouldn't be surprised, right? At the speed of technology is going, we will have, I don't know, functioning robots in the next 10 to 20 years, right? I think we will have well-functioning robots, which, in the next 10 to 20 years. I really do. At most, maybe 30 years, maybe. And I think that's at most, because at the speed of technology, we are so close.
Women have bought or owned one, which I thought was actually a really high number.
Yeah.
And do
This
you
is dolls.
The dolls, yes.
Yeah.
Do you see that going up, those numbers?
I do think so. Well, during the pandemic, one company I spoke with told me that they sold $20 million worth of inventory.
Wow.
And so I imagine sex dolls, like that number is just going to keep increasing in terms of the global income. But once the technology of sex robots gets better, I could see people moving over and just investing in one of those, because then it's not just, I mean, the sex doll today, many of these men will have intimate and emotional relationships with their sex dolls. So they will treat them like a partner. And what's interesting is actually from the research, it's actually more worrisome if a man treats his sex doll as an actual partner as opposed to purely as a sex toy. So if he has a relationship with the doll and gives her a name, is this going to create issues with public safety? Is this going to increase violence against women or girls, or objectification of women and girls, things like that? Because I think that was a lot of the criticism that was, I mean, it still exists now, but that was where I first started hearing about this discussion in terms of why people are concerned about the technology. Whereas coming from an academic and a scientific background, I just thought, it's technology. Like, why wouldn't we want robots? Like, robots are cool.
Right.
But now I'm seeing the social implications of that, and we have to be very, very careful.
We also talk about a scenario where you take the technology of the AI companion that we talked about and import it into the sex bot. So you're getting potentially in the future conversations, with a robot. Like, how far off do you think that technology is?
I would say probably at least 10, 15 years for it to be no different from a human, because I think it's more of like a mechanistic issue right now in terms of making the robot approximate human movement. There are robots out there that can do that, but those companies are not going to want their product to be used in a sexual context because it's so taboo. So that's where the discrepancy
What would the other
is.
context be?
Like folding laundry or getting you a cup of coffee.
It's
right? Like
so
normal,
dystopian.
Yeah. Like normal, sex, I guess, is an everyday part of everyday life too.
Right.
But just in terms of selling a product on the market, it's very, very different.
You write in the book that Japanese scientists are developing ways to grow live human skin on robotic fingers. That detail really stuck with me.
Yeah, and also that implantable wombs are becoming a thing as well. I don't think this is super popular at this point, but there have been cases where they will take the uterus of one woman and implant it into another woman. So a woman can menstruate using the uterus of another person.
Wow.
Woman, I want to say woman. But so in the context of, say, if you could get a synthetic body, like a robot, and implant a womb, at some point men can say, I can have a child on my own. I don't need a surrogate even. I can just, this is not going to be for a while, but if we continue this line of possibility.
Yeah, that is dystopian. And this is a thing where, should women actually be worried? I think they should, right? I think if certain men can make women obsolete, they could. Where you don't have to deal with the attitude, the BS, the insanity, the viewpoints, the standards, right? This is a thing where I'm not a big supporter of that, because it's so soulless, right? It just feels soulless to just deal with a robot and not a real human being. I just feel like in my opinion, I don't want to be with someone I can control, right? This is why I hate the women that says, "Oh, men want to go with younger women so they can control them." No, it's just that I don't want to feel like I have to control you, right? I don't want to control anybody. But when women are so combative, so disagreeable, so aggressive and all that stuff, they make men just like, like, God damn, where I want my peace, right? Give me my peace, right? Stop making life such a struggle. Stop making life so hard. And this is a thing where women feel like they're out of control, in a sense where now that men have to force some control, which is it's sad.
Well, I think like part of this community, and I don't want to make it everyone in this community.
I agree. Mold, not control. I agree. Men, because it's like men rather have women not having those bad habits, right? the combativeness, disagreeableness, you know, attitude, their aggressiveness, their combativeness. Men rather than not have like these bad traits that women have nowadays. Men don't want to control women. Men just don't want women to have these, honestly, just poor traits that don't make them productive partners.
Community or generalized, but some men who might fit the bill of incels might look at this and say, women who have rejected me, who haven't been interested in me, are becoming obsolete. Like, to what extent do you think that's an actual risk?
Before I would laugh at them, but now I do think, I mean, because partially that ideology has become so widespread, and the men who hold these views, I'm not sure if it's that they're posturing on social media, and I don't know how many of them are actually real people and not bots. But I have spoken to some men who really seem to be engrossed by this way of thinking. And if that product comes on the market, I imagine it's going to be quite expensive. So depending on how much they have in their bank account, you know, but I could see some men choosing to go that route. And it might not even necessarily be incels. It might be just men who simply say, I haven't had luck. And I try, just as women, you know, in one of the chapters, I talk about reproductive technology. And if you reach a point where you're saying, you know, I have to make a choice now. Am I going to have a child now or not? I'm going to have to go on my own to do that. So a man might say, I'm not having luck with women. Well, this is an option for me as well.
Do you think it's possible to have true intimacy without another human?
Definitely not if it's a computer program, no.
Okay. What happens when some people might perceive that they're having intimacy without an actual human?
You can definitely perceive the intimacy. I think that's the thing that makes it so dangerous, because is that it is so realistic. And like I said, when I was talking to these AI companions, I could fully understand why people become so engrossed with them and why some people do fall in love with them. Because
And that's the thing where, yeah, I think you could have fake intimacy, right? What you believe is intimacy. Because why do I believe it's fake? Because that robot don't really care for you, right? That robot doesn't really care for you. It's programmed to care for you. It doesn't really care for you. This is where when you feel someone that really cares for you, they want to care for you, right? It's they're choosing to care for you. That's the power that you know, that I believe that it's more desirable. They want to be with you. That no one's forcing them. This is why I said I don't believe men want control. Right? Men don't want to control you. Men want you that you want them. Right? You choose. Women choose to be with said men. Right? Out of all these other options, women chose to be with this man. That's what make men would be. That would make men more happy. Okay. That is true intimacy, because you desire somebody. You want to be with somebody. But, I mean, yeah, you could fake it, right? You could fake it with AI. So.
if you just watch the interviews or you talk to people who have an AI friend, it sounds a little bit bizarre the way they talk about the person. They talk about them like they really are a loved one. But it does activate the same response in us in that, you know, when you hear the voice of someone you care about, it releases oxytocin, so it bonds you to them. So even if you know, I don't think the release is going to be as great with an AI, but if you have rapport with this AI, you feel comfortable with it, even though you know it's a machine, it's still probably going to be evoking the same biological mechanism. And so that's why you have to be very, very careful and very aware. Because some people, when they lose access to their bots, they are totally devastated, right? It's like a traumatic event for them, the way they speak about it, because they feel this is the only person that really ever truly understood them. Right. And now it ran out of memory, or the company changed the programming and they can't access it anymore.
Or they can't afford
They can't afford it, right? Yeah. And so, you know, it really feels like a loss.
I think it might be easy for a lot of people to say these aren't real relationships. And I wonder if, despite that, our conception of relationship will just change. Do you foresee that?
I hope it doesn't. I mean, I do see that's going to change in the future if we continue in this direction. I hope that's not the case, because I don't think it's healthy. I think, like with many of these technological innovations, they serve a purpose that can work short term as maybe a temporary solution to make us feel better at that moment. But long term, it's not good for us, because ultimately, like one of the main points of sextinction is that you cannot override biology with technology or with novelty. And so we may use these technologies as distractions or conveniences, but in time there will be side effects and repercussions that we will pay for. And I think we already are paying for that.
You write in the book that, you know, people typically associate owners of sex dolls with people who are I think like socially inept weirdos
Yeah.
is maybe the way you put it. Do you think that perception will change?
I do think so.
Wow.
Yeah. Same with AI boyfriends and girlfriends. I do think in time. Right now, there's still a little bit of, there's a bit of judgment, but I think also slight fascination that people have. Like when I talk to people about this, they usually will say, no, they've never tried it, but they're like, well, what is it like though? You know, and they're curious. They think about trying it. And the expert I interviewed even said, people are going to want to try this and they're probably going to like it. And so what are we going to do when that happens?
There was one quote in the book to your point about people unexpectedly liking it. You know, you write, a doll will never argue, complain, lie, become jealous, betray, or leave you. It won't entice other men, won't be out late with friends, and won't take the house and kids if you split up. But a doll lacks all the benefits that come packaged with being in a healthy relationship, include building.
Yeah, women. This is the thing where I think women would be better with AI boyfriends, because women don't necessarily, they're not hungering for the sex. They can get sex. But the intimacy, right? The fake intimacy, that's what women would hunger more for. So I don't think women would want sex robots. They would definitely want AI or AI boyfriends, right? And I've seen a few videos of women, you know, marrying their AI chatbot and shit like that.
Building a life together, intimacy and emotional support. I want to couple that with a question, which is, you sort of described like some of these doll owners as actually being like quite empty and bored. And you spoke with some of them, right?
Yeah.
Tell us some of your takeaways from those conversations.
So it's interesting because many of them will document their relationships with their dolls on the internet. And some of them will blog over a span of very many years, conversations the dolls have with each other. They'll do photo shoots with the dolls. And some of them do, like, they look aesthetically pleasing as art, but they would frame it in the context of, oh, we had a really nice date last night and here's a photo of us, like as though it's a real person. So it's quite sad. I mean, some of them, the way they speak about their dolls, as a woman, I found a bit repulsive. They, you know, refer to the body parts, they poke and prod at the doll. I thought it was interesting when I visited the stores that had this merchandise, I would always ask, can I touch, is it okay if I touch her here? And I would feel like if I touched the doll's arm, say, I'd be very careful, and I would only touch it in places where you would touch another human being, where it'd be socially acceptable. Right. But so I think it's a little bit different. I remember one store owner, she said, you know, most people don't ever ask, they just touch it. So I think it's interesting from a female perspective. I like the way that we interpret that versus, say, men, if it's a sexual thing. So my point being that I understand why they serve a purpose. I am sympathetic to that. And I understand for these men who probably really do want love in their life, or maybe they did go through a difficult divorce and lost, you know, half of their income and access to their children, and it's really devastating. But I do wonder for men who, say, are more antisocial or maybe have negative views of women, how it's going to change or potentially worsen their views of women.
There's sort of this debate about whether all of these technologies in some ways solve the problem of male loneliness, because they give people these alternatives. And therefore we don't have as many aggrieved, aggressive, angry men. Because
I think it just makes them more lonely. In my opinion, it just makes them more lonely, because it sinks them down into a hole that it's harder to escape from. Because when you have less and less actual interaction with people, you don't know how to interact with people, right? It makes it harder. In my opinion, right, I'm already antisocial. I'm already an introvert, right? So it definitely, I don't, I'm not good with interacting with people in real life. This is why I do love, you know, doing live stream, doing lives and doing this. It helps me interact with people more. It gives me that outlet. Happy I got a girlfriend. I try to talk to people as much as I can, you know, even though it's hard, because, you know, I'm very an introvert. I'm very, you know, antisocial. So I try my best, because this is the problem. Being shut in is not a good thing, right? It's not. This is why I really promote, you know, men to focus on their mental state, right? And that's including it, right? You got to talk to people. It doesn't even have to be women, you know, just talk to people.
Because they can turn to the AI companion or the sex doll or the OnlyFans star. And that people see it as all a big solution, actually. The other side of the coin is that people look at all of this and say, no, but now it's going against everything.
I think that's a shame. Whiskey, I think that's a shame. He's like, I have never been in love. I think that's heartbreaking. I really do. Um, yeah, I find that I really find that heartbreaking, my brother. I think that I don't know whether you want a man or a woman. You know, it would be nice, I believe, to actually find someone that would love you and you can love, right? I mean, like, you know, I know you love your dog, your Gracie, but it's nothing beats loving a person, right? In my opinion.
Everything throughout evolutionary history that has required men to become better, essentially, becoming physically fit, getting a job, doing everything that might make them marriageable. It cuts against that. I'm wondering how you look at that risk benefit in terms of, if we remove all of these alternative options, does it actually incentivize men to become better? Or does it just make this pool of men more lonely, more upset, more isolated?
And sexually frustrated,
And
which is not good.
Yeah, and sexually frustrated, which leads to violence and so forth. So how do you think about that?
Right. Well, if I look at the data, so I've heard that.
No, I don't think if you remove all these AI things or sex robot, it makes men better. No, because at the end of the day, even if you remove all that, they still have the problem with the women here, right? They still have problems with how women are. It isn't. I mean, it doesn't help the problem, right? It doesn't help the situation where men become more isolated by with AI boyfriend and girlfriends or sex robots. This doesn't help the situation. But again, women will still be the same, right? Women will still be who they are, and in my opinion, women are the problem. Women are the reason why men are, or why more and more men are what it's like now, right? What they are now. I think he said what's BS is that you never been in love, right? That could be what he's talking about, BS. Um, because most people should have already been in love, I guess. But yeah, um, but again, feminism is the problem. If women don't change, well, men have to accept the life that they have. That's the problem.
That concern. I don't think it's possible for us to halt this technology or ban it or, wish it out of existence, because it's here and it's going to continue. And even if you do try to ban something, it's going to come back in some other form.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more enticing to this population because they're going to say, well, you try to ban it, I'm going to go out of my way now to use this. So say with pornography, there has been research to show that access to it leads to a decline in terms of sex crimes. Same with prostitution. But I still don't, that's not going to incentivize these men to have healthy relationships or to view women as human beings that they want to connect with and love. So, that's a bit of a different conversation. But I do think it's important to just even have the conversation period and to question it, because I do think to simply say, oh, we'll throw these guys a bone and just let them, like the sex robots or whatever, let them just have their fun and at least they have an outlet. Well, we don't have data to know, especially with, say, sex robots. One subject I talk about in that chapter also is child sex dolls, which is a very dark subject. And the fact that there are some people, including academics, who say we should just let pedophiles have child sex dolls, child sex robots, when that technology becomes available as an outlet. We have no data to know what the outcome of that is. We don't definitively know that that's going to help. We don't know that that's going to be even a neutral effect. It could worsen things. So I think it's fair game to be skeptical.
Here's my opinion. Why don't we just delete them? Are they a net? Excuse me. I'm sorry. Sorry. Excuse me. Are they a net positive to society? Are the pedos actually a net positive to society? Why don't we just delete them? I'm sorry. If you have to choose any group of people to delete, to not care if they walk this earth, it should be pedos, right? We shouldn't be caring if these types of people walk the earth. I'm sorry.
And if you are skeptical of evolutionary explanations, like I said, all the citations are in the book, so you're welcome to read them. And if you have concerns, I'm always open to hearing that. I actually love hearing from people who read my work, whether they agree or disagree.
How do we get men to opt back into having real relationships?
I think giving them
Changing women. That is the thing. Women need to change. Women need to want men. Women need to desire men. Women need to stop saying they don't need no men. Women need to change their view on, you are better than average men. You are average yourself. So in essence, you qualify for average men. That is the problem. Women are the source of the problem. Women are the source of the problem, and women are the solution. They need to change.
A fair chance of success. I mean, I keep hammering away at that point, but I would also say trying to close the divide between men and women. I think a lot of the polarization is that, well, it's the algorithms feeding us certain things. And we're not really aware of why that content's being shown to us or the actual popularity of it, because there's this perception that it's very popular and you see all these likes and comments, but are those actually reflective of what people think? And not just on the platform, but just people in real life, right? If you talk to the average person on the street, do they really think that that behavior is
I also like to chat with AI. Right? I've been chatting AI with the ChatGPT about, like if I need sources on things, right? About like any subjects that I want to know more about. So I do like chatting with AI.
someone's ranting about a date they went on that was bad, or say it's a woman who's complaining about a guy approaching her at the gym and she was so disgusted and angry about it. And this is why men are afraid to approach women now. I think most women do not behave like that. They don't get in their car after and rant about how awful it was that this man approached them and how dare he and don't talk to me and that. And so I would say to young men, I understand. I think that chapter also is very much about like physical health as well as emotional health and things like environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors. So I think both sexes, physical health is a huge part of the equation. 5% of the population is currently depressed. So mental health is also feeding into this. When you're depressed, you have low motivation, you don't want to socialize, you don't want to be around people, you have low sex drive, you don't feel good about yourself. And so there's a lot of correlation between depression and anxiety too. So also you don't want to be around people, you feel judged. So being in the best place
and
you
just
can
to clarify for people who don't know, endocrine disruptors are basically chemicals in the environment that are leading to lower testosterone and sexual function.
Yeah, just messing with our hormonal systems basically, and they can be naturally occurring or they can be synthetic as well. But in terms of my advice to people who maybe men and women who are struggling in this area of dating or to find the motivation to date is just to work on your physical health as well, eat really well, and be physically active, be in the sunshine, and then be aware of all these other toxins that we may or may not even be fully aware of in terms of how much they're affecting us, because that's affecting our fertility and also our mood.
What does the future look like if the status quo remains?
More loneliness, more disconnect, more unhappiness. And I think especially if we double down on these Band-Aid solutions, it can be potentially really tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing where, we're not heading down a great road or anything. So, it's not great. It's not great. Guys, that's it for tonight. All right. That is it. That is it. I love you guys. Whiskey, thank you for all the love tonight, right? You are an amazing person, right? You are an amazing person. Thank you for all the love. You showed so much love tonight. You didn't have to, but you did. So I love you. I do love you, my brother. Antics, thank you for just stopping by. Always love hearing your views. I always love talking to you, my brother. So thank you for stopping by. You guys are amazing. Nothing, it's not like a popping, not, it wasn't popping or anything, which is fine. I don't mind, talking to some of my regulars, right? I mean, not all the regulars were here tonight, but it's cool, right? I mean, not every day is going to be, crazy in the chat, crazy on live. So it's all good. I don't mind. I still love creating these videos for you guys. Still love going on chats. Still love doing the lives. So you guys are amazing. Right? I love you guys. Thank you for all the love, for all the support. If anyone else, you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please check out my other videos. Please like, please comment. That always helps me out. You guys are amazing. I love you guys, right? Thank you for all the love. Thank you for the support.